year now,
and we're still figuring
and
it out.
every single time it's something.
That's okay. It's technology. It's a lot of fun that way. So don't worry.
Well, I'm glad I have this guy because I'm like a dinosaur when it comes to technology. So good stuff.
That's okay. I get the same problem, so don't feel bad.
Right. Yeah. I guess this is more like podcast question, but do you mess up electronic stuff?
All the time.
Yeah. So, sometimes we think it's y'all. We're like, Eric's messed up our stuff. Aaron's messed up our stuff. But this was nothing to do with you. Not yet, anyways. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, give it a couple hours. We'll see.
Yes, definitely. All right.
Dude, I think we're good. Oh my gosh.
Good?
I can't believe it worked. Awesome.
Yay.
Thank you so much for being on the show, Samantha. I mean, dang, I have recently found out about you through Joe, and I watched the show with you and Dave, and I watched a bunch of your videos, and man, your story and everything about you is just awesome. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Ben. That's really sweet.
Heck yeah.
All right. So we're gonna roll through the intro. You won't hear the music, but you'll notice that it's the intro, and then we're just gonna say what's up, and then we'll bring you on. All right.
Perfect. Love it.
Huh?
Awesome.
Keys,
All right.
dude. Sorry, Dave.
No sports for you.
No sports.
It's more of a computer guy.
I'm more of a computer guy, man.
That's all good. Don't worry about it.
Oh my god.
Awesome.
Also,
All right, dude.
We don't have the music. We're just gonna have to ad lib it.
Okie dokie. Sounds good.
We're professionals, we promise.
All right. This is another episode of UFO Garage.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Joe, and this is where we talk about those UFOs, aliens, and all things weird.
Yeah.
Dude, so we're back in the studio. Well, I'm back in the studio with you for like the first time in like over a month, dude.
Yeah.
It feels good to have the cans on, have the good mic in front of my face. You know, I'm not like hunched over this tiny table in my room with my laptop open, only do that at night, dude, in private, bro. You don't ever do that for formal meetings, dude. So,
I thought at first, like, man, Joe has a nice backdrop, but it was just your hair, dude. It was just your beard and your hair.
Did you see my new poster? It's an astronaut with like a kitten for the face.
Oh my god,
that's awesome.
I didn't see that one.
Yeah,
dope.
dude. Well, hey, back in the studio. It's gonna be a good one.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Samantha Mowat with us tonight. I'm super excited about this because she's gonna answer like maybe some questions that we've kind of had for a while. So before we get into all that, Samantha, say hi to everybody.
Hello, everyone. Lovely to meet you. And thank you so much, Ben and Joe, for having me on. I'm so excited. I think this is going to be a really fun, entertaining interview for people.
I think it's going to be a pretty good one for sure. So without giving it all away right up front, if you don't mind, just kind of maybe a little overview of who Samantha is.
Sure, sounds good. Well, I'm a clairvoyant psychic and a contactee. A clairvoyant psychic is the type of psychic that receives visual information both through the third eye as well as the physical eye. I was trained by Pleiadians to better understand my psychic abilities, to nurture them, develop them, and have them really grow into what they are today, which is fantastic. When I look at this component of who I am, I'm one of those people that have had contact from the time of infancy. I've met over 40 different species. I am an experiencer as well as an abductee at my lab. I've been through MK Ultra. I've in the hybrid program. There's a lot of components to me that are found throughout different aspects of ufology, and I'm here as a life's mission to normalize psychic abilities as well as contact with extraterrestrial and multidimensional beings. That is part of my soul's agreement in this lifetime.
Damn.
Wow, show's over.
You think we could fit that on a business card? Like,
yeah,
that is everything about that. I'm like, oh, I have a question. Oh, I have a question about that.
Yeah. This card, right? Yeah. Oh man. So where do we even start?
Yeah. Where do we begin?
Let me go ahead and get this one out of the way. I was looking. Well, let me see. Did I mess this up? Nope. Here we go. All right. I was looking through your site, and it has a lot about you. You offer these services. You said clairvoyant, clairsentient. claircognizant, clairaudient. Have you ever thought of changing your name to Claire?
Actually, what's funny, if I ever had to change my name, I would change my name to Claire as a bit of a joke. So good one.
You should. I've been waiting all day to say that.
I like that. That's awesome.
So eventually, as we go down the list tonight, we'll have to have you kind of explain some of this stuff to us. And right off the bat, just to be upfront with you, I mean, Ben and I have always been into like, this UFO alien aspect of stuff, since we were kids. It's always been like a really interesting thing to us. We've always been drawn to it. However, not until recently did we start to kind of accept some newer stuff, I guess you could say. I guess the best way to explain that is if you walked up to me with some sage and a purple rock, I really didn't have the time to listen to what you had to say, right? But recently, Ben's kind of been going through this, like, I guess, I don't know, spiritual growth type thing. And I too have kind of taken a second glance at this whole thing. And we've really been kind of diving into it, trying to understand it, because the further we've got into this, the more we've understood that's a huge part that a lot of people are just looking over, right? Just like we did. If you don't mind, could you kind of maybe explain that whole thing?
How does it connect the spirituality with this?
Well, of course. And that's where I think it's actually very simple and very actually easy to explain. If you look at what a lot of these different beings are, many of the beings that we consider to be extraterrestrial are actually multidimensional in nature, indicating that they're operating at a different vibrational frequency than we are. I want you to think of the universe as being a book, a very thick book, like one with thousands of pages, and each page represents a vibrational frequency that is vibrating at a different rate. And as you move up in frequency, of course, you go to the lighter vibrational realms, things where you encounter light beings, angelic beings, some of the Pleiadians from like the 5th dimensional ones to the 8th dimensional ones, the Arcturians, Andromedans, things of that nature, as well as some very benevolent reptilians. But I want you to think about the vibrations that are below us, where you'll find things like jinn, lower astral entities, deceased people that are operating just outside that spectrum of light. And so when you look at people who are more psychically inclined, we are simply able to see more into the dimensional light frequencies that other people just aren't yet seeing. As you know, we're going through an awakening process as a collective, which is so exciting, because as you look at the collective starting, yes, of course, he's going through the awakening. And so are you too. Otherwise, you wouldn't be into this stuff and you'd still be programmed and going to the 9-to-5 job and really just falling into the traps of religion and money and things of that nature, rather than the spirituality that you're both starting to be more interested and compelled to move towards. And so when you look at the way that a lot of this is working, many of these beings, they're actually operating with their psychic senses. Many of the Greys in particular are working on a more of a telepathic information that they exchange with people. So when you hear about people that are contactees that meet the Greys, it's always mind-to-mind information between the two parties. And this, of course, is a psychic ability, very similar to clairaudience. However, clairaudience is heard more so through the ear chakras. It has more of a distinction with voices. It's a little bit slower and less concise than, say, telepathic communication, which we also do have with things like reptilians, Pleiadians, Arcturians, you name it, which is wonderful. But when you're looking at the way the psychic abilities are working, yes, I do agree that things like sage and crystals are very much becoming more common. Sage, of course, like many things, simply clears the vibration in a location. Crystals simply raise the vibration. And so if you actually start looking at a lot of the contactees that are out there, many of them do have a lot of crystals and things of that nature within their homes, plants and things like that, to help raise the frequency, to get them at that lower vibrational state. It's more interconnected than what people understand. What's on your mind? You look like you have more purple coming around you.
I have a question. So, well, okay, let me get this out of the way. So yeah, I always thought of it like, you always see like the Native Americans doing stuff like that, the old like ancient, the Vikings, all these old ancient cultures would do stuff like this. And I guess for me, seeing it on YouTube or whatever, it's like, oh, look at Brittany. She really knows what she's doing. Look at those yoga. She doesn't know what she's doing, right? And like, and that's kind of the whole, that's that gap that I've had to build a bridge over by meeting, well, I haven't met you personally, But one of our big people that we met was Vivian Chavette, and dude, she completely. I mean,
there were some vibrations going
Yeah.
on that totally flipped my perspective about
just
that
actually coming in contact with, contactees or whatever. There's just something different, man. You get this feeling. I don't know if everybody gets it, but I know me and Ben had this, we're just like, there's just a feeling like something different that you don't feel around everybody else, and certain people, they really amp that up and you can feel it.
Yeah.
I don't know if everybody can feel it. Maybe just like me a bit, like our minds are playing tricks on us. We're kind of in this bridge of like, is my mind playing tricks on me, or is this like for real? Right.
I understand what you're saying, but you have taken into consideration what we talked about a moment ago, how you're both going through the awakening process, which means that you're better connecting to your higher levels of DNA, connecting to the higher self, psychic abilities, things like that we've been programmed out of from childhood. And now with that in mind, when you met this lovely woman, Vivian, you were recognizing within your auric body the vibrational difference between her aura versus the majority of people that you have been in contact with up until this point. So your clairsentient and empathic abilities, which is your ability to read the energy within a room, the energy emitted by a person, an object, or a location, was what was picking up on those psychic energy differences. So look at you guys becoming more psychic. That's awesome. And look at you recognizing it and talking about it. That's going to help you to better recognize your own psychic gifts and be stronger psychics in the future. The more you recognize the differences that you're sensing and sharing that information with others, the more you start to be willing to acknowledge that you have these capabilities. So good job.
Awesome. It's been kind of cool. Like there's some shit that I've been realizing, like, wait, I was just thinking that was gonna happen, and it just happened. Oh, I don't know how else to explain it, or I think I know what this person's gonna say or how they're gonna react. Like I've definitely been experiencing. I don't know. It's
claircognizance.
Weird. Yeah. Some weirdness going on.
Even the clairaudient thing, dude. Like now that she was talking about that, like how we said that, like so, like we don't really meditate, right? But meditation's a big part of this whole thing, correct? So like right before we go to bed, when we hear those voices and we're like, oh, is that music?
Or music, yeah, music.
Is that
sometimes
somebody talking? Like maybe it's like us, like unconsciously going into this meditative state right before we go to sleep, and we're actually like picking it up and just never realized it.
Yeah.
You're correct. You're 100% correct about that. When we're in that in-between state, like when you're coming up from wake up from a nap, or when you're zoned out in a vehicle and someone else is driving, you get the sensation that the person needs to slow down, or someone's going to cut them off, or the light's going to change. That's you tapping into the psychic frequencies of what's going around you. You're reading into the timeline. Good job. That's really important. That's also you communicating with beings when you're hearing music and you're hearing voices talking to you. That's you picking up on the different vibrational spectrums all around you. That's perfect.
So I have to say, I don't really meditate. And I had never meditated before in my life, right? One day, a few years ago, I decided I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to sit down and meditate, right? And I did. And it was probably like my second day to do it. I had like this, there came a point where it was like, it was almost like a snap or like a pop, and it felt like a puff of like air on my forehead, and it was like a old school TV, like when it would turn off, how you'd have that like white little line thing. I heard the snap, I saw that light puff of air on my forehead, never did it again, because I didn't know, like, it's like magic or like witchcraft. Like, yeah, you could do witchcraft and it could be like totally like fine, but you could also tap into something bad if you don't know what you're doing. And so like for me, I was like, maybe I shouldn't do this because I don't know what I'm doing. And to be quite honest with you, I don't meditate, and I haven't since then, because I'm kind of scared that I might be really good at it. And again, just never really practiced it or tried it. But I get this feeling I might be really, really good at it. I don't know. I don't know what it's like to hit that meditative spot where it's like, boom, here we go. Like, this is what you're supposed to be feeling. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. And I've never had anybody to like kind of walk me through it. Like I said, just YouTube videos, but I don't trust Brittany.
I understand where you're coming from, but think of it this way. The fact that on your second time meditating, you have an intense energetic feeling, meaning your empathic abilities sense a very strong vibrational shift. Your third eye is opening up when you see that white light coming across, and you're having this very intense feeling coming around you. That's actually a really good sign. Did you feel safe, or did you feel as though you were in danger when this was happening?
I would say I was indifferent about the whole thing. I was more just kind of shocked. Like as soon as it happened, my eyes opened and I was like, what was that? I don't know if I really gave myself time to like do I feel good about this or do I feel bad about this? It was kind of like whoa, I've never felt that before. Probably not gonna do that again. But
I understand, but the fact that you didn't have an initial fear reaction where you're sensing anxiety, stress, feelings of apprehension, you were freaked out, but you weren't actually afraid. And so because you don't have those initial vibratory indications telling me, whoa, back off, stay away from this, I would try meditating again, because chances are you're actually, as you said, adept at it naturally from past life information starting to come to the surface with you. And that's why you were able to tap in so quickly.
I might be giving it another shot. I think also too, I grew up Catholic, so I'm pretty much scared of everything.
Before we get off the topic of frequency, I have a question for you, Samantha. So you spoke about vibrational beings. Is there, I like to compartmentalize things just to simplify it so that I have a better understanding or simplify things. In your opinion, are there beings that you've encountered that assign themselves to these low frequencies and some high, and like, is there good and bad between those, or is it kind of a spectrum in your experience?
It's very much so a spectrum. When you think of a lot of the beings in particular, the ones I've encountered that I've actually had more negative experiences with have been things along the lines of jinn, dead people, people in the lower astral, which are in a lower vibrational state than us. But when it comes to beings like the reptilians, Pleiadians, any of the different varieties of grays, mantis, arcturians, light beings, they do appear to have a spectrum, angelic beings included, which a lot of people do find surprising until they actually think about it and think about the Bible and stuff like that, which is just loosely based upon some historical events for the planet. Now, you can't actually say one group of being is entirely good or bad. That is just as much racism as us saying that about any of the races of humanity, which I think is something that needs to be better understood. One of my greatest pet peeves is when I'm watching videos on YouTube and I see people who are trying to say all Pleiadians are good and all of them are pure light and wanting to help us. I'm thinking, they're still human. You do realize they're still human.
That itself, you like blew my mind in two different ways. Is like, I've never thought of these species. Like first, it was hard to get my mind wrapped around that there's different species, but that was been a couple of years ago. Now I've like meeting people like you that have had experiences like this with these beings. Now there's multiple different sectors of the same race. Like, yeah, no, that it totally makes sense when you hear about different stories of like, yeah, it looked like a gray alien, but it had black skin. That always was interesting, which I think it was the Zimbabwe case that they had black skin.
Oh yeah. Or like suits or something. They couldn't, like, all the kids had different ideas of what they saw.
Yeah.
They were all looking at the same thing.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
Their visual was just different. Yeah.
Yeah. So with that race thing, that blew my mind. I had this thought in the shower last night, like, what if this whole idea of like conditioning ourselves, like, hey, don't be racist, like that's bad. Like maybe it's not just, maybe they're waiting for us to be past that here on Earth so that we can accept that in that next level with alien species.
You are correct. Many of the beings have apprehensions about meeting most of humanity because they do regard them in a very racist way. If you were to have a reptilian pop up in your room suddenly, chances are the two of you would be freaked out, like, oh my goodness, what is this? What's going on? I'm in danger. Whereas if one popped up in the room with me, I would look at it and be like, hi, what do you want? And trust the vibrational frequency. Does it feel kind towards me? Okay, then I'm going to show it an equal amount of respect. Is it feeling hostile towards me? Okay, then I'm going to react accordingly. And so people do have to take that into consideration when they're dealing with these beings. You cannot judge them based on how they look. You very much so have to go into your heart space, which I'm sure the two of you, if you review yourselves over the last 5 years, will see a huge difference between being more intellectually focused, more programmed, more very much so in the logical aspect of the mind. Now you're both moving to the more heart-based space where you're more intuitively focused, more how does something feel? Does this resonate? Does it not resonate? Even as you're going through the interviews that you're having, the things that you're seeing, whether it's on TikTok, YouTube, whatever, you're using your level of discernment, whether something actually feels correct to you or whether there is misleading information in place. And that is because your vibrations are shifting. That's perfect because it'll better enable you to understand these beings as you do encounter them with time, whether it's this lifetime or the next lifetime, you will end up meeting them, especially because your vibrational frequency is focused on the multidimensional spectrum. So that does mean you are more starseed in nature. That's why neither of you feels more connected towards this planet Earth. That's why you feel as though you're here, but you're here, but you're not feeling like you're understood by the people here. Nothing here really resonates. And that's also why we're looking at this component saying, hey, look, you have to recognize within your soul whether something feels right or doesn't, especially as you meet these beings. So the more you trust your intuitive information, the sooner you will meet them. And you have to get out of that fear energy, because some of these beings, they see you in the vibration of fear, they're not going to waste their time on you. And it's not because they don't care about you. It's not because they don't want to help you, but because they'll look at you and be like, I have to put on a facade. I have to keep a constant vibration up where I look as though I'm this beautiful being. So this person will even want to talk with me and accept the information I'm willing to give them. And that's why we see screen memory so very common in place for a lot of people, especially in the early part of their contact, the first 10, 20, 30, 50 years of their contact. And all of a sudden they go through an awakening moment. They're like, oh my God, that wasn't actually this I saw. It was the grays or the whatever. And it's quite interesting seeing how that shifts and evolves.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I've always, yeah, I mean, this whole, you know, I've always wanted to see an extraterrestrial,
At a
light
distance.
being at you know, or whatever you want to call it. I've always wanted to see one, right?
Mm-hmm.
A good one.
You know, Ben's always wanted to see one too. And that whole, like, you're like, whatever your vibe is probably why they're not hanging out with you, right? You know,
Yeah.
and I think we still have this kind of like, I'm not sure vibe, right? Because I mean, we've always talked about it better not show up on the side of my bed.
That's
It better
so-
not stand around the corner.
Yeah.
It better not just be standing in the dark. Like, what the hell's wrong with you? Can you just show up during the day, like maybe by a tree or something? Like, I'm totally cool with that, right? But maybe it's that like internal fear of like, maybe if I accept them to be by the bed, or if I accept them to be in the dark, like maybe I'm changing the way, like my own vibe. And they're like, okay, he's ready. I still don't understand why they have to show up in the dark or by my bed. That's their thing. But, you know, if anybody out there is listening, like, hey, by a tree out in the distance, maybe during the daytime, it would be totally cool. You know,
Well, I completely understand that, Joe. I really do. And if you want to start meeting these beings, the two best things you could do is A, meditate in conjunction with work on your psychic abilities. That way you can better discern the information coming to you. They'll start to come to you either psychically, where you're receiving downloads of information from them, knowing like in the middle of the night where you wake up and you're like, I feel like someone's watching me, and knowing someone's in the room and being more, okay, I need to calm myself down. It's perfectly okay. I feel safe, and accepting that, as well as astral projection. For people who are not yet having physical contact that would like to meet many of these beings, doesn't matter the species, they all deal with astral projection as well, because they're better able to come and have connection with you when you're projecting out of your body, as we all do every single night. And so if you would like to meet them at a safe distance, doing it that way is one of the easiest ways for you to meet them without that fear component in place.
So what I understood from that is there's two types of contact. Maybe there's more than that, but it's the astral kind of the dreamlight like state. And then there's the physical. Have you, it sounds like you've experienced kind of the gamut of all those things.
As psychic.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you have a specific memory of like the first time I know you said that you've been having contact since you were an infant, but does one stand out where it was like, oh, this is something totally different? Was there like one like first kind of scenario where you realized like this is actually happening?
Yeah, actually, it's when I was about 16 years old. I was in grade 10, and at the time I was a pretty normal teenager. doing things like dance, sports, still doing like the little bit of partying that kids do at that age, just being a normal kid. And it was a hot summer night. I remember opening the sliding glass door and my sister was sleeping across the room from me. And I woke up a few hours later and I could hear that the crickets were no longer going. I couldn't hear the frogs. We had this very large pond on our property because we lived in the middle of nowhere on a 40-acre chunk of land with no technology, no neighbors that you could possibly see at all. And when I woke up, it was quite nice. I noticed that it was quite bright outside, and it was bright to the point that it was almost like daylight. And I thought, well, that's really odd because I'm not hearing the dogs barking. I'm not hearing the cats, the birds. And as I was sitting up in my, like I was laying on the couch, that's where I was sleeping that night. It was way too hot to sleep in the room. So we had the door open and I saw this being coming up towards me through the sliding glass door. And as I saw its silhouette coming towards me, I started to notice, oh my goodness, who is this coming? And you could feel the vibratory difference like you did with Vivian, where it felt so very almost like strange and unexpected, but also very familiar. And when that happened, I remember knowing this was an alien. And I know it sounds very odd for someone way back in like the early 2000s to think. And as I started to sit up to go towards this being, I noticed that all of a sudden my vision went black from the outside, cascading inwards. I woke up the next morning. I'm like, I feel kind of funny. It feels like something happened. I don't remember what. And I went with my mom to the garden because we had this very large garden that we had to take care of. I'm talking to her about what I'd seen and what I had gone through. My mom's dismissing it like, yeah, it was an ET. Yeah, they're over here all the time. UFOs are totally common. And we had seen a lot of UFOs at that time. Wow. And she's like, but you're still going to have to do your chores. You still have to go feed the chickens. You still have to go feed the animals. Just because you saw aliens last night doesn't mean you're allowed to not do your stuff. I'm like, oh, okay. And so because my parents did things like that, even though I had been having contact, when you're a kid, you can dismiss a lot of it. You're like, okay, I'm going to tuck this away in this cute little section of my mind to process later. But that one was one that always kind of stuck in my head. And so as I got older, I'd talk to my parents about their contact, about what was going on. And it helped me to really better normalize it without panicking. Because when a lot of people think about contact and seeing a being and going up onto ships, they get the sense of panic and anxiety because it's not that they're actually afraid, it's that they don't know what to expect. Right. And so that's part of where the distinction is.
Oh, mm-hmm. That's got to be the scariest part, not knowing.
Yeah.
That's what, I mean, we've talked about the possibility. I mean, going back to that. Okay. Yeah. What if the best scenario happened and it's during the day and he's just hanging out in a tree and he's like, hey, you want to come hang out? I'd still have some apprehensive, like, what are we going to do? Or like games, like, I want to take me into space. Yes. I don't know. That's the apprehensive, like, man, how do you get over that just right off the bat? Did you, I mean, maybe you just felt comfortable, or?
I mean, it sounds like your parents helped you, like, kind of, like you said, normalize the whole situation. Like, I guess just kind of being born and growing up into that whole thing is a little bit of an ease, right? Yeah. You know, man,
So do you think that your parents are starseeds as well?
Guaranteed, yes. Starseeds are typically born to starseeds, especially contactee bloodlines tend to be born to other starseeds.
Is there a difference in like starseeds and indigos and like what's like all these different classifications? Are they different somehow or are they the same thing? And are indigos mainly Asians?
No. Indigos occur throughout every single race. That's okay. It's a completely fair question because if you don't know, there's no harm in asking.
Right.
When you look at the classifications, there's a number of different things that people can be. You do have some humans that are very genuinely from Earth, new souls that are brand new to being here. They're very impulsive, very temperamental. They tend to go through the whole swings of emotion. Think the YOLO people, or you only live once kind of people, which is completely fine. No judgment. It's just where their soul is in their evolutionary path. Whereas we have people that are earth angels, which are of the angelic realms, higher vibrational crystal type energies that are much closer to source consciousness, more evolved souls that have come down here as well to volunteer for help. Starseeds, of course, you know the whole range of the different types of beings. They're a lower vibration than we have the earth angels, because the earth angels are, of course, a higher classification. It's not a matter of better or worse. It's just a matter of what more have you learned. That's all. You also have the aspect of indigos, are simply an earlier term for this. It comprises of everything from elementals that are incarnated. Have you ever met someone in East where you look at them like, you look just like a fairy? I swear, you've got like this long willowy body and this fairy type energy to you, and you're playful and mischievous and kind of like all over the place, and you love plants and love animals, those are fairies that are incarnated. Whereas you have people that are star seeds, and they're very diverse. And crystal beings, pardon me, the crystal children that is also talked about are different again, because they're even higher vibrational than a lot of the star seeds. They are very much closer to being the crystalline ones, the light beings, things of that nature. We have the indigos do have more of a warrior type energy to them. They're very strong, very temperamental. They tend to, they want to destroy the old system and build a new, which is a totally different vibration and energy than the children that are being born now. So of course, the indigos are more likely to be your generation X, Y, and millennial, more so than your boomer generation, which is like the first wave of star seeds come in, which did have a lot more of the angelic energy. And we do have more of the crystalline energy coming through now, which is so exciting seeing the evolutionary difference as we're moving Earth forward on a new path.
Very interesting.
There's just so much awesome stuff in there.
Yeah. I never realized there was such a big difference. I might be an indigo.
Destroy the old, build a new.
Build a new. Yeah. I'm a little temperamental.
Yeah.
So we had this lady tell us that Ben had this white mantis that follows him around everywhere.
She said I had a bunch of people.
Yeah.
But in particular, there was one tall mantis behind
your guide,
like protecting me from all the other people trying to. That, I mean, honestly, that didn't really freak me out all that much. I thought it was kind of cool.
Kind of comforting, right?
Yeah, it was very comforting.
And then she said I was a dwarf.
Yeah.
I was like,
but she was like,
that's a variety of elemental. That's good. They're beautiful. They're wonderful beings. That's why you love the earth. That's also why you have this beautiful dynamic friendship. Very different yet very similar. You're both very passionate about music, of course, is loved by the dwarf beings. The energies of healing and communication are loved by mantis beings. The dwarfs are very much so connected towards the water energy, the mountain energy. That's why when you need to recharge, you feel the need to go out into the woods and be by yourself and be very expressive, have that deep grounding energy. That's very connected for you. Whereas yours is very different again. Ben, when we look at you, because you enjoy standing under the stars, you enjoy that whole nighttime energy, you're a bit of a night owl because of the energy of mantis. Mantis beings have a darker world, and that's okay. The dwarf energy is different again, because when you look at it, they love the energy of springtime, summertime, fall time. Winter, not as much of a snow person.
I hate the winter.
That's okay, no judgment. I love winter. Yeah. But that's also because you love growth. You love seeing how things are progressing and changing. You love animals. You really feel that deep energy to it. That's part where you have that dwarf energy. It's not, you have to look at it this way. Yes, you have that, but that's just your dominant energy coming forward at this time. You have multiple aspects of your soul incarnating a variety of different types of beings. You're just simply having this moment, this one lifetime with these traits in hand and coming forward as your main traits, because these are the skill sets you need for the agreements you have in place.
Interesting. So
it is.
Maybe you can explain this to me, because she also said she was like, that's kind of like your earth family. And then she was like, but your star family.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, she was like, your star family is a lion. You're a lion. And I was like, maybe you're just saying that because of my hair and my beard.
No.
That's what I thought too. But, that's kind
of,
you have to take that into consideration though, because you do have this natural affinity towards the Lyran type energies. Sorry, there's a fluffy in the air. When we look at
that's what it was. Yeah.
Lyrans are broken into two varieties. You have the earth humans that are from Lyra, which is where humanity originated from, and you also have the cat beings from Lyra. So when you look at ancient Egyptian architecture and things of that nature, I bet when you were a kid, you thought the ones that were part cat, part lion were pretty freaking badass, excuse my language. And they were probably the ones you felt the most connected to, be it Bast, Sekhmet, things of that nature. Because of the energy of felines, now it doesn't necessarily mean that you like little cats, but they're also a very love-based race. They're very strong. They have this warrior energy to them. They're very capable. They enjoy all forms of communication, but they also can be more indulgent when it comes to things like food, because they love to be very, very strong, go, go, go. And all of a sudden they crash and they're all like, okay, I need a break. I'm going to just rest and sleep and eat and leave me alone for a week. I'll see you then.
Right.
So, yeah.
I'm very independent and I love naps.
Me too.
Cat naps, dude.
That's awesome.
And I was a big fan of the Thundercats. Thunder.
Oh my God. I forgot about that show.
Yeah.
But those are also based upon the Lyran type race. A lot of the shows that we have, especially around us when we're kids, we recognize components of our previous incarnations when we watch those movies, when we watch those television shows, because kids have that natural psychic awareness of, hey, this feels familiar. I'm not sure why, but I've recognized it as being a part of me.
That's so awesome.
What category do you fall into, Samantha?
There's a few of them that I actually fit into. I know that I've incarnated as Pleiadian. I've been a reptilian before. I've been a gray before. I know that I've been an angelic being before. I've been an elemental before. Those are some of the ones that come to mind off the top of my head. When I look at this, my soul's kind of been all over the place, like this adorable little gambit changing person, which is fun. But predominantly, I have been more humanoid type races, in particular, Lyran.
Oh, wow. So, okay. I just thought of a question. All right.
Okay.
This is like so over my head.
Yeah.
I like to speculate and talk, you know, ask crazy questions. So you say, and this might be just the definition of reincarnation, but like you say that these souls have been reincarnation on Earth, and that's a completely separate thing from reincarnating on a different planet. So I guess philosophically, are each planets kind of like these daycares at a certain specific time in the growth for each human specifically, and they go there to learn specific things or just be around each other? And it's like, I don't know. I've always had this idea in my head that we're here for a purpose. We don't know what it is, but that's the purpose, is to not know. And just, if we knew, then the whole experiment would be ruined.
To an extent, yes. You have to think of it this way. Every planet is emitting a certain vibrational frequency. And when we look at the fact that we've incarnated in different universe and different multidimensional type bodies, that means that we've gone from some of the higher vibrations down to lower ones and up again. It really depends on what your soul is vibrating at that time, as to what lessons you want to learn and where you choose to go. For instance, if you were wanting to have a very challenging life, you would choose to go here or the Orion star system, somewhere that has a lot of beings that are coming together. Because if you think about Orion, people just think of the Orion Greys, and they're wrong. So you also have reptilians there, you have humans there, you have all sorts of beings that have actually gone to the Orion star system to live in, because it's a collection of a lot of stars and a lot of planets. Same with Earth and our star system. The one that we're in actually does have humans on multiple planets, but you also have to take into consideration that on Earth, it's a lot more challenging because you have such diversity going on here. Whereas if you're looking for an easier lifetime in this time, you'd actually choose to have something along the lines of being more in the Procyon star system, the Pleiadian star system. You would look at somewhere that has more of that harmonious, nurturing vibration. In particular, Andromeda would be a very good one, or Sirius. If you were really drawn towards wanting to have a nurturing, healing, very calming lifetime, you would choose the Sirian star system, because it's very much so like the tropics. It has a lot of that water energy, empathic, connected to nature, not a lot of unnecessary technology or pollution like we have down here. Here's actually very stressful and very hard. And that's why most of us are struggling with anxiety and PTSD, because we can't handle the vibration here. Not at all. But we're doing great because we're not breaking down every day. So good job, everybody.
I think we're doing fantastic. We're real pretty good.
I think we're doing all right, man. You know,
I feel like some people are listening to this and like their thought process is like, oh, it's the end of the world. But I don't feel that way. I feel like it's just a new beginning. Like,
I don't either.
I don't know. Something about, I've been on TikTok like hard on all this stuff.
I told you to say you've been reading the encyclopedia.
I know. I've been reading a lot of books, but yeah, like this stuff is so interesting to me. Yeah, and like I guess going back to like the different vibrational frequencies, is that the light being that it's kind of way up there in frequency. Is that correct? Am I wrong on anything?
You are correct.
Okay. So that's like the highest frequency. Is there a gamut of, I guess, heaviness, of course, but you're almost like not able to feel anything because you're just all the
like your density.
Yeah, maybe, but emotionally, you're kind of just like,
right,
I don't have any ties or any jealousy or any regret, or any happiness or any sadness. You're just kind of like this thing of light, right? Is that kind of close to what you've experienced?
It's closer. We have to take into consideration all these beings have incarnated for millions and billions of years all throughout time and space, because time and space, of course, doesn't exist in the way that we perceive it to. It's not linear. It's very much so this giant ball that you can go anywhere in time and space, which is great. And a lot of these beings have evolved past the need to just have their own individual emotions. They're in control of their vibration. They're in control of their frequency. Their emotions, very much so like ours, are tied into our frequency. And if you were to allow yourself to go into the frequency of something like anger or lust or survival, then you're going to be in a very low, dense vibratory field. And so a lot of these beings do keep themselves much closer to source consciousness in their crown chakra and their higher chakras, because that they actually are able to manifest much quicker. They're able to be a divine assistance. And as you go along your soul evolutionary growth pattern, you stop feeling as much focus on yourself and the ego, and you actually start living more so for others. You start being more in service to the divine, the all. Whether you call it God, source, it doesn't matter. It's all the same thing. It's just the divine creator.
Love that.
So I look at that in two ways. One's probably like super earthly, and the other is like, you know, where it's supposed to be. I would assume they, in a sense, it kind of sounds a little like slavery, maybe. Like you're in service to the source, which I guess, yeah, if it's the source, then appreciate it. Thank you. Right. You want to do like favors and like help out, right? If somebody does something nice for you, you return it, you know, back to them. But then at the same time, it's like, am I just serving this source? Like, what's the what's the purpose?
Yeah,
like can I just like be this thing and like not have to serve anybody?
Like in the Bible, it says like when you go to heaven, you serve God for eternity.
Right.
That always, for some reason, I didn't like that. I get what you mean by that.
I don't know. Yeah, I think it's just, I don't know. Maybe it's just the terms that we have to explain this thing.
Yeah.
And the word
I think we're
serve.
thinking of like manual labor. I don't think it's that.
Right. It's probably awesome. And you're like, I would love to serve for eternity, right?
Yeah.
That's probably what it is. But I think like in earthly terms, serve just seems like, oh, there's my weekend, you know?
I do. I totally get that. And perhaps serve isn't the right way to put it, but I want you to take into consideration this way. When I've talked to the beings that are angelic, crystalline, and light beings, and they've explained to me what it is they do with their time and how they perceive things, they actually have a better sense of recognition of how we're all very much so interconnected, as though the things that they are doing for us in assistance, whether it's our angels or spirit guides, things of that nature, the more they help us, the more they're actually helping themselves. Because once they reach a certain point, they're able to better see not only forward and backward in time in all directions, all timelines, but they're better able to see how the most minute things actually have a great impact. And they do see how that impacts their own vibration, our own consciousness. And that's part of why they do consider it service, but it is a form of self-service, just like the Pleiadians helping us. They are helping us because it's also in their greatest good, because they cannot move much further in their own evolutionary path until they help us, which are their cousins, as well as the other people that are incarnated on different planets that are also related to them. We're all still very interconnected, which is not very well talked about within ufology.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Definitely.
Through listening to you talk and stuff, you had said something that was pretty interesting that like really resonated with me, because I always felt that way too. You had said that, these other beings, just because they can do all this stuff, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're better than you, right? Mm-hmm. You're important as a human. And it's like, you know, if you can figure this out, I mean, you know, you're also can be psychic. You can have these abilities, this clairvoyance, this, you know, all the different clairs, right? You can practice and learn all this stuff just like the other beings are, right? It's not necessarily that they're better than you. They just have like this little head start. It's like a jump that, you know, they have on you because we haven't learned it yet.
Yeah.
And my thought has always been like, hey, I bet humans are really badass and we just haven't figured it out yet. Yes. I think we're probably pretty awesome. Like, and eventually we'll get to the point to where like there's another planet somewhere else that's like, yeah, we've heard of these ETs and they're called Earthlings. And you know what I'm saying? Like, you know, they fly giant Budweiser cans through space or whatever. I don't know, you know, but like they're really cool guys. Like
they have cheeseburgers, man.
They have cheeseburgers and Earthlings are awesome. So yeah, that resonated with me because I feel that way too. I think Earthlings are pretty badass. Like we just need to figure this whole thing out.
I agree. And that's one thing that I've noticed over the last 10 years. I've been doing readings for 15, and you guys are around my age. So you have really noticed the difference between where things were when we were all in high school versus where things are now on a collective consciousness level. We really have taken a huge leap in the last 15, 20 years. And we're going to continue making such progress based upon what the beings have told me, because they're saying as we move towards more of that 100 monkey syndrome, where everything is really starting to be coming together, we're going to be having that much more of an accelerated growth, which is absolutely exciting. And I can't wait to see humans in space sharing our cheeseburger recipes of all things, which will be pretty interesting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Have you tried space bacon, man? Like,
Space bacon
so
would be epic. You go on like an ET presses a button and they make a cheesecake, and it's like, hold on a second.
Yeah, yeah.
Let me get my barbecue pit. Have you ever had brisket? But I guess meats are a low vibrational food, right?
Yeah, they're like a heavier.
Well, think of it this way. When you're eating things like meat, when you actually look at it this way, it's a better way to describe it. Here's the sun. The sun emits the purest form of vibration. A lot of the beings that are out there, especially the higher vibrational ones, take sun energy, solar energy, source energy, pull it in, and that's how they replenish their body, their cells, and that's their form of nourishment. The next step removed from that is plant ingestion, where you have soup, salad, smoothies, things of that nature, which is what a lot of the Pleiadians are at, a lot of the Arcturian type beings are at that state, as well as a lot of the grays, where they have more of that connection. Whereas the next step removed again is where we are, as well as a lot of the reptilians, where we eat meat, we have dairy, because we're eating the flesh. So the sun and then the plant. So sun, then plant, then cow, then you. That is source energy 4 times removed going into to replenish your cells. It's a very ineffective system. It's like you trying to get your vitamins from something that had the vitamins 4 places ahead of you. It doesn't necessarily make sense. And so a lot of people that do go through a lot of contact, it actually shifts our vibration and our food preferences. Right after I had a contact experience when I was forest firefighting at the age of 19, I came back from that contact experience. The next morning, someone's making bacon and eggs and I smelled them. I'm like, I can't eat that. I'm sorry, I can't eat that. And I've literally went vegetarian overnight because of that contact that I had, because they had done another level of awakening with me. They do it in steps and stages. It's not like they suddenly take a blindfold off and you see things completely pure as they are. It's always done in stages. That way it doesn't overwhelm the body and overwhelm the psyche, because they have found that humans are very delicate psychically, and we're also very delicate mentally. So if you give them too much of an awakening at once, you can have someone that's having a nervous breakdown and actually very mentally damaged. So it's quite interesting how this works.
That story alone makes me believe you, for the simple fact that nobody wakes up, smells bacon, and becomes a vegan. Yeah, like that's.
I woke up out of a dream and like
that had to have been quite the experience. So, take for example, what if there's a well, I guess if you're like interdimensional or a light being, you can pretty much go do whatever you want to. But say for like if there was another human species living on a planet that was next to like a brown dwarf that didn't give off the awesome sunlight that we have. Mm-hmm. Would those beings maybe naturally just be of a lower vibrational frequency because maybe they don't have the awesome plant growth that we have? They only really maybe have these crawling bugs, worms, and critters and things that they have to eat because their sunlight isn't as potent as ours is on Earth.
That's fair, but they might also have their cellular system within the body to be at a different vibratory rate that allows them to absorb the level of sun coming in at a more adequate rate than we are currently able to, despite our sun being much brighter.
Science is tight, dude. Science is tight.
I love science. It's entertaining.
It is. It is. Yeah. What do you what do you think about the scientific community? And it's so, I mean, I don't know, this might be too broad of a question, but for so many years, like, if any of the spirituality stuff comes in and like, hey, so I can prove all this stuff, but you know, it's not written out about in a book or scientifically published paper. Why do you think the scientific community has been so against this aspect of consciousness and growth? And like, yeah, what's your opinion on that?
Well, based on what I've been noticing over the last 15 years is that the scientific community is actually becoming more open to a lot of it. They're starting to understand not only the presence of multidimensional beings, whether it's angelic beings, light beings, these ET beings that we consider them to be, but they're also more aware of the fact of our vibrational resonance is more impacting us than we had originally recognized. The work of Nikola Tesla as well as Albert Einstein is better understood at this time than it was when it was originally, released, because we're starting to understand the vibrational frequency being emitted by the various objects. And so with that in mind, they're actually starting to notice that there's a harmonization between the spirituality aspect and the scientific community, because we're starting to see things as recognizing that we're both looking at the same coin from different sides. And there's a lot of my clients range from doctors to even NASA scientists to dietitians to people that are more focused on a science and healthcare type capacity. And they are looking at the vibratory frequency of such and starting to recognize how it is more intertwined than what they were originally taught within school, which I am very excited by, especially because as they look at this, they start to draw their own conclusions and do their own scientific studies and then share with their peers, which is wonderful. It's exactly what we're here to see. And I'm very excited by it.
Dang, that's awesome.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't realize this at the, as you were starting to say this, like, I'm starting to realize like, yeah, shit, like scientists have been kind of focusing on, didn't one of those, like the CERN company kind of, or maybe it was a different company, but they were looking at this parallel dimension and they were able to prove that you can, look into a parallel dimension.
They fired the laser at the wall.
Yeah, it was like a mirror and they could tell. And then, recently it was this company did quantum entanglement and like sent
teleported an atom.
Yeah. Dude. So
and they found the brain works in multi dimensions. There's a new study where they found that the brain actually breaks up into multi dimensions and you're able to process everything. And then everything that comes, because we had this conversation the other day, how you can think of something in 3 dimensions, you can draw it on a piece of paper in 2 dimensions. Yes. And, then you have like this, I don't know. Oh, that's an interesting question. Me and Ben decided that, you have all these dimensions. Nobody ever talks about the 4th dimension. And we decided maybe it's because those guys are assholes and they don't put their carts back after they go shopping at Walmart. So can you explain this absence of the 4th dimension? Is it just time? Is that what that is? And that's why nobody talks about it? Because we go from 3rd to 5th and nobody talks about the 4th.
Because we're partly straddling the 3rd and the 4th right now. And that's why you're noticing a lot of these fluctuations, why we have things like the Mandela effect occurring, where we're going back and forth between the 2 dimensions, where people are like, it's the Bernstein Bears. No, it's the Berenstein Bears. And that's why we're seeing a lot of that going on as we're going between the 2 energetic frequencies. The 2, you have to take this into consideration, whether you're going from the 2nd to the 3rd or the 3rd to the 4th. It doesn't really matter because there are a lot of similarities. When we go to the lower astral lineage, have you ever noticed that it's darker, but it looks just like Earth and it feels like you're at nighttime, like it's this really creepy and weird kind of Earth, like I'm in a bad area of town kind of thing. And those are when we actually leave the body that we recognize that we're in this lower dimensional plane. And so when we're looking at the aspect between the 3rd and the 4th, it's not that they're necessarily these jerks that don't put their carts back at Walmart. We're kind of the jerks that don't put our cart back at Walmart more so than them. They're more psychically aware, and thank goodness for that, because we need that shift. But I want you to think of it this way. If you look at the standard person from who was an adult, say during World War II, they had a very concrete 3D vibratory field. Whereas what we're noticing now with people who are in their 20s, 30s, teens, even up to the 40s on occasion, they are having the vibration closer to 4D. They're very much so in that vibratory frequency, which is so very different from people in their 70s, 80s, and 90s at this time. You can feel the difference between them as the level of consciousness has actually shifted quite a bit over that very short period of time. And so it's not that we're going to notice one day, wake up, boom, where everything's sparkling and filled with light and we're in 4D, 5D, this is great. We're not really going to fully notice the transition because it's a very gradual process as well. Mm-hmm.
Like wake up, like, oh, I'm light. Oh, this is cool. I can fly.
Like I was going to my kitchen, but now I'm in England for some reason. It's like the 1800s. So I have to get out of here.
Nice.
Go back to my room.
Well, could be entertaining, but no, it's not quite going to be the way that people are expecting. I mean, I'm sure you both, especially when you're on things like TikTok, like I am, and you see people saying, oh, on this day we're all ascending, oh, on that day we're all ascending, which I look at that and I'm like, oh, honey, that's so cute. It's cute. Do you think it's going to be like you wake up and it just happened? Because it's a lot of work.
Yeah, do you remember when everybody was like, it was a specific date, like everybody on TikTok was
December something, 20th or 21st. Yeah.
I think it was like the 24th because it was like the winter solstice. It was, and everybody was freaking out, like, oh my God. And I'm like, this happens on TikTok. I've only been on it for like a couple, like 6 months or something like that.
Yeah.
But there seems to be like some kind of new awakening thing that's, it's definitely going to happen on this date. And everybody gets all riled up and it never happens. But you know what I did realize is that there has been a gradual change in people's perspectives. Maybe it's just the algorithm being more specific, but I don't know. What I'm telling you is I'm seeing that I'm validating that idea that
you definitely see it. I mean, even like on Facebook and stuff, like you see people, they'll post things like, oh, I just had this amazing epiphany, right? And like they'll post like their thing on Facebook, and I kind of read it and I'm like, well, welcome to the show, man. I mean,
I love that.
There's been people who have been saying this exact thing for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
And like now people are like regurgitating stuff, and it's like it does. I'm sure it's a, you're obviously like you're here to teach, right? Now that we are doing this whole radio podcast thing, it's like, we're a medium for people, but our medium is, we want to be able to teach people too. Like we're learning so much stuff and we want people to learn along with us.
Because we're dummies and like we're just curious, and there's so many other people out there that are curious like us. Yeah, and you just need to be taught. And
feel the average person is so thirsty for this type of information, and I think it's really important for people like all of us to maybe direct them into the right direction, because you see a lot of people who are talking about this, but they're also just learning about it. So you can see they're kind of off in left field, and it's like you've got the foundation. It's all this the stuff up here that we need to sort out, right? And that's the hardest part, because I mean we've been doing this forever and we have yet to sort hardly anything out, right? It's still just a guessing game, kind of.
But you guys are doing great. I mean, you have to remember you're meeting the target of the people who are vibrating at a vibrational frequency similar to yourself, whether it's lower than you or higher than you. All around your vibrational frequency, those people are going to be drawn to you because of what you're talking about, because of your openness to these concepts and these topics, which is wonderful. And you're helping people who are less awakened than you at this time to see you as a more normalized version, where you're talking about the cheeseburgers that are being on UFOs, or the Budweiser in the sky, or whatever it is. You're helping to normalize it in a way that makes those people more comfortable. So you're doing exactly what your soul mission is agreeing to do. Whereas they may come across the information from me and be like, okay, that girl's crazy. Let's not listen to her. Whereas that would actually be more detrimental for their awakening. Whereas them coming across you would be, even though we're talking about the same things, you're coming out from a level and a rate that they can better understand. So in my opinion, that's perfect. And yeah, we have all these wonderful little baby witches and newly awakened people talking about these concepts. And sure, they get some wrong, they get some right. And that's okay, because they're learning discernment. You're all better recognizing energetic frequency, what resonates, what doesn't. And as you go through the awakening, which we're all doing on this planet, or we wouldn't be here, we are looking at the things that maybe didn't resonate with us 10 years ago, 20 years ago, whatever. And we're looking at from a new place of awareness. And it might resonate for 5 or 10 years, and it might not resonate again, depending upon what your frequency and your level of understanding at that time is. And so the guides really don't want us to look at things like, oh, I have these abilities, therefore I'm better. It's like, no. Right. You have this, therefore you have to work even harder, is how they perceive it to be.
Yeah. That's one of I think like in the UFO community, I think that's probably one of my biggest pet peeves is, when you kind of hear a lot of the old heads, they'll say things like, oh, we're rehashing this again. We're doing this over again.
Such a low vibration thing to say,
Jay. And the thing is I feel like, yeah, they totally have a point. If you've been doing it for 40 plus years, you probably don't want to hear about that, right? Well, then go find something else to talk about and bring it back to the rest of us, right?
Agreed.
But the thing is that there like within the past, 5 years, the amount of people that have become interested in the subject I feel like you have to continuously rehash the old stuff over and over and over again. Not only will you probably do a better job because you know more about the subject and it becomes more precise, but you have to keep rehashing that for the new people, or else they don't have the groundwork to work off of. Without that groundwork, it's really difficult to see like where we're at now. Like, oh, the government disclosed that there's alien technology that isn't from this planet, right? But
microwaves.
exactly, right? Something like that. But and people are like, oh, this is amazing, right? So yeah, a lot of the old heads have been saying this for 70 plus years and they don't even care. They don't want to hear about it. They don't want to talk about it. But for the new people, that's really interesting. And so I think it's important for like people like us to continue to rehash that old stuff for the new people, because even though you've heard it, I mean, fine, go play another song. It's not for you. It's not for you. Continue doing the work. I appreciate it, but we got to keep rehashing some of this old stuff and even some of this, the stuff that you're into, right? Ancient. It's totally ancient, but we're talking about it like it's something new and fascinating. Like, oh, now we're mixing it with other species, ETs and things like that, right? When these old people, they were like, we're doing this for the gods, but maybe we're just finding this link, throughout history. I don't know.
You're fully correct about that. These beings have been visiting us since we got here. And we have been modified to actually forget a lot of the things. We forget our past lives because the modifications to our DNA that has been done. We also don't necessarily have this great memory where humans have a hard time remembering anything past like 5 generations ago. So we're this adorable little species that tends to forget things very quickly rather than actually talking to our elders and remembering what's happening. And so when you look at this, yes, we did call them everything from gods in ancient Egypt, ancient Sumeria, things of that nature, as well as a lot of the Aboriginal tribes. But the people aren't necessarily taking into consideration that the names for these beings have changed. Although we call them extraterrestrials, multidimensionals, extra dimensionals now, in 500 years, we're going to call them something completely different. And
Maybe.
we're viewing it, yeah.
Neighbor.
Yeah, which would be more idyllic as long as we don't have to go and reset the cycle again, which is one thing that they're trying their best to avoid, especially a lot of the benevolent beings. They're trying to make it so we don't go in this path that we're going right now, which is a more self-destructive type path.
How many times have we went down that road?
Several, from what they've explained.
Oh, yeah? Man.
What?
Well,
I missed it.
I asked her how many times have we reset, and she said several from what they've explained.
I thought you said 700.
So that,
oh no,
I mean, that makes me kind of like, I mean, it gives me a little bit of hope that like they haven't just given up, it's
I
like
agree.
These idiots. There we go again. It's gonna be thousands of years before we get back to.
Like, oh, I've seen this episode before.
But if you live 2,000 years, you don't mind seeing it, knowing that you could just step out of this body and go into a different mantis body or a different gray body. Then you don't necessarily mind being like, okay, great, it's gonna be another 10 years, fine, so be it. It's like breeding German shepherds. Okay, this batch didn't work out too well. We know we had to modify this, and we'll see how the next set of puppies turns out. Hopefully better.
Yes.
Whoa. That's another strange thing that humans do is breed animals. And I mean, yeah, it goes down to fruits and vegetables and
then we have the audacity to be like, why would an ET breed us? It's like, yeah, to every single animal, plant, thing, fish, like everything on the planet,
but not us. No.
Hold on.
That's
man. So okay, since we're kind of going down that route, there's a question I would like to ask you. We've also heard you talk about the arrangements when it comes to the hybrid program, I guess, or this. How does this work, right? Because when we say hybrid program, we immediately think, okay, they took somebody, they mixed some alien DNA, boom, they're no longer monkeys, they built pyramids and shit, right? Whatever. And like even now in current times, you see like, it's like, okay, they took somebody and they mixed some alien DNA with them to make this hybrid gray thing. But that can't be the whole thing, right? Like, I mean, they must be, say, taking you and then taking another human that may have like this strong psychic genetic component and probably breeding y'all to create this one super psychic thing, right? I mean, is that, am I hitting this maybe, or am
Yes,
I?
you are. You're doing a beautiful job. There are a number of reasons why the different species breed humans. It depends. A lot of them do follow bloodlines, so they will follow ones that they have been altering for dozens of generations. So, of course, that means my parents have been contactees, great grandparents, so on and so forth, all the way back through the line, as well as my children and any children that I have in the future. And my grandchildren will be contactees as well. The hybridization program encompasses, from what I've noticed, several different species that I'm being hybrided through. I have babies that are a variety of white or tall white. I have babies that are grays. I have babies that are raptors, babies that are reptilians. I have some with other humanoids. I do have my genetics being altered to make more psychic human babies on this earth, as well as within the MyLab program, they do hybridization as well. Now, the different groups do a number of different things when it comes to this. One, they will end up abducting you from the time you're a very small child. You will be even in your mother's womb, and you will have modifications done, both on an energetic level as well as a physical level. The reason I know this is I have found myself on craft multiple times from the time I was a teenager into my adulthood, where I've found myself sitting, well, partially reclined rather. It's more of like a sit-lie type position on a floating table that looks very similar to like a bean, but upside down. So it's got like that funny little lumpy part up top. And I will see a being beside me that is often either holding my hand or putting two fingers kind of like right in this section, holding me down. It's like an acupressure point that keeps you in a slightly catatonic state. And I will have a being that's quite often a mantis, yeah, right around there. That is actually
that Spock uses, like to knock people out.
Kinda, it's very similar. A lot of information is disclosed through movies and television about what ETs and multidimensionals actually do. But what they will end up doing is they'll end up taking the hybrid children out of you quite often physically. And what they do is it's different than what people think. They think, okay, well, why don't you have cesarean scars? How come you don't have a lot more damage around your uterus or your cervical opening? When in actuality, they're able to do some sort of splicing with the skin where it actually ends up pulling apart and the baby comes out in like a large embryonic sac, very similar sometimes to like a grapefruit. Other times it looks like more of an ostrich egg, very common as well. Now, when they're doing this, it happens for a number of different reasons. One, sometimes the offspring isn't viable to be raised outside of craft. So if they're mixing too much ET DNA and the baby would not actually be able to be viable on the planet Earth, due to physical deformities, mental imbalances, genetic, whatever, or it's just better suited because it's going to be raised on craft, then they will take it out. However, when the child is actually in a better situation where it has more of the balanced ET and human DNA from the two parents, then the child is often allowed to be raised here, which is what I've had a couple times now. We'll have a couple more times. Now this ties into the orchestrated relationship component. As you were talking about a moment ago, we discussed the fact that you can meet someone on craft. Now, one of my most recent love bites, very lovely man. I have the good pleasure of being quite close with them. And he and I have been friends for quite a while now. And what I want for you to understand about this is when you're looking at this aspect, you will end up meeting these people on craft from the time you're a small child, from about the age of about 5 onwards. And you will see them periodically, whether it's every couple of years, every 6 months, really depends. But they won't just breed you with one person. I've been able to calculate that there are several different men that I've had orchestrated relationships with, as well as had ET contact on craft with, where we have hybrids. Now, these men range in psychic abilities, range from claircognizance to telepath to clairvoyance to remote viewers. All of them do have the commonality of psychic abilities. However, the blood type thing seems to be have a variable. Some are rhesus positive, some are rhesus negative. They do tend to have very similar, how can I explain this? Vibrations though, as though you can feel the fact they are more starseed origin. Most of them are awakened to their psychic abilities, as well as have more conscious control over them, versus someone who's like able to have them, but them being sporadic. So there's that distinction in place once more. And I've had the good pleasure of meeting about 7 of them in particular that I've recognized from being on craft that I have bred with. And I've gone on to have relationships with 4 of the 7, which is great.
So that brings me to my next question. And if it's too personal, please tell me. But how does that work? I mean, like, I would assume, like, if you're married, you have a current relationship, is that tough? I mean, like, if you're married, right? And then you were selected to breed with somebody else, and then you're here and you're like, I'm pregnant. It's not yours, right? But you know the situation, right? Like, I'm going on craft, and that's kind of my thing. Like, is it hard? I mean,
yes, actually, it led to the dissolution of my marriage. because of the fact of how much hybridization I was having, the orchestrator relationships, having them several back to back. Right after my youngest child was born, he was born with several allergies, which the ETs have been very kind and actually have given him a tremendous amount of healing to make it so he has no allergies now, which is fantastic. But after he was born, because of the fact that he was born with being allergic to everything from shellfish, fish, dairy, gluten, so on and so forth, I was like, yep, no more. We can't do this. I can't have another baby like this. That's too much crying, too much intensity. I'm done.
Yeah.
And so my spouse got a vasectomy. And right after we had made the decision for him to get a vasectomy, my orchestrated relationship started up again. It wasn't even, the vasectomy hadn't even happened yet. And they decided that, okay, here, this man's viable. You can have a couple more kids with him. He has 2 daughters and this is what they look like. And he walked into the room on craft. It was a whiter, bright room. I was with a female being at the time, and I recognized this man as someone that I had been abducted with from the time I was very small. He was within a 5 or 10 year age gap of me. And I looked at him like, no, I don't do this. I'm not doing this. I'm married. This ruins everything. Stop it. You guys are being really mean. I'm not up for this. And so I rejected that one. And then the string of it started where they started bringing me different men into my life, whether it was them coming to me for readings or me meeting the most synchronistic and odd ways. And I would recognize them from being on crafts, several of which recognized me as well, saying, I think I know you. How do I know you? And then we both realized like, oh crap, we know you from abductions, which does make it a little more difficult. In my most recent orchestrated relationship, the ETs that I'm working with are actually several different varieties have been pushing forward with the pursuit of this next relationship, because this person does have very complementary extraterrestrial multidimensional genetics in place, as well as a stronger increase in psychic abilities, because they want for me to have 2 more Earth children. Which means the difference, of course, they will have a higher percentage of ET DNA, but the vibration is better able to be handled between the mother and the father, creating less genetic and physical, mental abnormalities and problems. Make sense?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's like when you hear something and that sounds really complicated, when you're like, man, I wish I had somebody to explain it. And when you finally hear it explained well, you're like, okay, well, that makes sense to me. Yeah. But I mean, that's not, the elephant in the room is like, it's so, it has to be emotionally,
draining.
Yeah. So
absolutely.
It just sounds like a lot. So it sounds like you're a very strong person after going through this and just being able to talk about it openly. Like, I just thank you for doing that.
And
of course,
I can understand too. Like, I've heard you talk about like your soul contract, and you seem to be very aware of your soul contract. I can see how other people who aren't maybe aware of this soul contract are like, yo, this is too much. Like, this is not like, I don't know what's happening. Like, I totally understand why people would take that aspect and be like, yo, this is terrifying. This is a violation. This is like, I'm not consenting to this. But from what you're saying, you technically have consented to it in your soul
before you're born. Yeah.
Right. So can you maybe explain like this soul contract thing?
Of course.
Yeah.
I actually have several soul contracts in place in this incarnation. When you have soul contracts with people, there's a number of things that take place. Anyone that you have karma with, that you've incarnate with, that you're going to be having a relationship with, be it mother, father, sister, brother, lover, you have soul contracts in place, whether it's to balance the karma or to have things just occur once more, things of that nature. But when we're talking the extraterrestrial multidimensional component, a lot of our soul contracts are actually done before we are incarnating. So as we have life after death, we also have life between lifetimes. So after I died in the last lifetime, which was in the 1960s, during that 20, 30-year gap of when that happened, I decided what my lifetime would be this time, which was I had agreed with a lot of the multidimensionals to make what they're doing and who they are more normalized, to help bring about a greater understanding of who they are and what it is they are trying to do for humanity, be it good, bad, ugly, doesn't necessarily matter. I agreed to have hybrid children. I agreed to the abductions, the contact. The difference from an abduction is difference between abduction and a contact is where they sit you down. They're willing to talk with you just as you and I are doing, share information, answer your questions, treat you with respect, and harmony, whereas an abduction can actually be quite traumatic. It can cause a lot of PTSD. That's what a lot of MILABs and MK Ultras go through, as well as when you're going through things like rape with some of these beings, things of that nature, as well as painful implants, unnecessary extractions, things like that. So I do have contracts in place with that. Now you may wonder, why the heck would someone want to make a contract like that? Why would you do that? That seems so ludicrous. But we're looking at it from a 3D Earth perspective. We're not looking at it from the perspective of the soul. The soul has a greater understanding. And so if you are an extraterrestrial multidimensional being and you're trying to gain better awareness about why a different group has a certain agenda in place, you may choose to incarnate into a person or into a body that would be abducted by that group. And then when you're abducted by your other groups, relay the information of what it is you learned, what was done to you, what you saw, things of that nature. And so that's part of the agreement that I have in place when it comes to things like being a MILAB, MK Ultra, things of that nature, as well as when it comes to some of the specific ET groups that haven't necessarily been as kind to me.
So your soul contract, does that include? So are you saying that includes the MILABs and the MK Ultra stuff as well?
Yes, it does to an extent. That's a different soul contract, though.
Okay, yeah, because I was going to ask. I mean, from what I understand, the MILABs and stuff is like, it's also a lot of human involvement. So like, and MK Ultra, right? It's a lot of human involvement.
We talked to Melinda Leslie and
oh, she's sweet. I like her.
Oh, I love her to death, man. And it's weird because, like, I don't know, like, I guess your soul from my 3D world in my mind, I'm thinking my soul contract would be like, yeah, if you want to have these hybrids, like, let's do it. That's in my soul contract. I'm down, right? But then when you get into this like human involvement of like the MILABs and the MK Ultra, it seems a little bit like I don't
hard
really
to understand.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to understand because it's like it's now not just ET involvement. It seems like a more nefarious, like nefarious,
what the point? Like, where you? What are they getting out of it?
I mean, are these people in MK Ultra and MILABs, or do they have this soul contract to where they're like, oh, you're going to work for MILABs, you're going to be an MK Ultra guy, you're going to be one of these humans that takes other humans and does this crazy shit to them.
You're going to do a 20 and back.
It just seems like it. I don't know. Like from the ET perspective, it seems like, okay, that makes sense. But then as soon as humans start getting involved with it, it seems a little tricky.
It is actually quite more complicated than what they understand or what we understand. And that's part of the reason why they have the abductions going on in place. So when someone has a lot of physical abductions, you have to take this into consideration. A large amount of energy is opened out within that location. And of course, you're both very well aware of the fact that we have so many devices around us now that notice that there's a huge energetic spike, whether it's the very interesting looking cell phone towers that we find everywhere, the fine looking palm trees that aren't actually palm trees that are devices and collecting the data. Yeah.
Always like 2 points off of them too. Like obviously not
seems legit, right? Of course. But because we have things like that located all over the planet, and of course all the satellite towers that are all over the place, these are also monitoring us, looking for huge energetic spikes that are occurring. And so when you have something like a vortex opening up, orbs traveling through, a ET craft manifesting above your home or physically coming down through space into our location and abducting us, it leaves a very distinct energetic signature within a specific location. And so that's often how a lot of these MILAB type personnel type to recognize, hey, look, there was an ET abduction that happened right here, and we're going to abduct the whole family and figure out who was taken and why they're taken, what was going on. And so the bloodline families do get taken into it, even though they don't always necessarily have soul contracts in place. Quite often they do. Quite often they will be incarnating into those bloodlines to help clear the generational trauma, as well as it's very common for MILABs to be of a military family themselves. So there is that aspect as well.
Yeah, that was one of my biggest questions, like, because we're shooting a documentary with our buddy Eric Mitchell right now, and that was always like one of the biggest things, like, this
Yeah.
thing showed up at your house, and then all of a sudden, like, you got guys from the Pentagon stalking your family. Like, how did they know that? Like, what are they using? Is this like some super Google or some shit? But no, it's just your cell phone tower that acts as like also, an ET, it can just it knows exactly where it's at. Yeah. It's kind of like how Olaf was telling us, like, yeah, GPS satellites. Well, yeah, they're made by the Air Force, and yeah, they tell you like where to go on your phone and your computer, but also they're used to track detonation of nuclear bombs. Yeah. So that way they know exactly where the detonation happened, but they don't talk about that. They want you to just know that it's GPS, right? For your car. And so it's kind of the same thing. It's like, we got all these cell phone towers, and it's like, I only have 3 bars. My phone sucks, right? But in the grand scheme of things, that cell phone tower,
because it's being used by.
Why you don't have any service is because there's a massive UFO that just lit up somebody's house, and your service went down because it's got to take care of that right now.
Yeah,
that makes total sense. Like, is this like, I didn't really get into like the super 5G stuff that has been going on recently, but I mean, it's like, are those towers like now that we have like this Pentagon releasing their videos and all this stuff, and then 5G just so happens to roll out at the same time?
I got one installed in my room.
That's a better conspiracy theory, honestly, than like, oh, it's gonna microwave your brain, or like, which it probably will too. I mean, it's not a bad conspiracy theory, I guess, but like, it's a super powered like UFO energy contraption.
Beacon tractor beam,
dude.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I was going to say, it's just ET technology that they're typically using to also gain awareness of who's being abducted. But please go ahead, Ben.
Oh, I was going to say something stupid, but yeah, the show Supernatural, they have this board where it shows a map of the world, and it can energy is being detected by this. Talking about like movies and film and TV shows reflecting real life and ET technology slowly. This is exactly what we're talking about. They're looking at this map. It's like this, not a 3D map. It's pretty simple because in the show timeline, it was built in the 50s by the men of letters.
Right.
And it just shows up when there's anomalous, ghost activity or vampiric activity. And it just shows up on this little map, but it's interestingly enough, we were talking about pixies and fairies earlier. It's actually,
nice.
This device is being powered by this fairy magical ability. Magical. Well, it could be a different, like a vibrational. I don't know.
Same thing. It's just different words to indicate the same aspect. But you have to remember, all my labs, like, we are chipped, like it or not, whether we have energetic implants or physical implants is completely debatable depending upon who you talk to within ufology. And so anyone that we are related to also gets checked out. There's also a phenomenal amount of underground bases that are really monitoring the areas around them, looking for these energetic surges, taking care of it right away. People are like, oh, we're seeing a surge and it's like 6 days over. Well, guess what? The deep underground base that's closest to that is going to be the one taking care of it, not the one that's really far away.
Yeah. So maybe what you're proposing is that maybe that's one of the key reasons why we have these DUMBs, deep underground military, or whatever. Yeah. But like this light rail type technology that they figured out, I totally believe that's real. Like, it's gotta be. Yeah. Even if just to, like, take George Bush from Texas to California in 12 minutes. I don't know if it's used for that.
George Bush.
He's probably gonna wait. Like, he's probably gonna take a ticket, like, and wait in line for like 6 months. Like, well, I'm still waiting. Get my one seat.
I'm ready to take the train.
Yeah. I got a couple horses I'm gonna bet on. But like, that would be the most lucrative way of using that technology, right? Like, to get to one place or the other, to check out these like down craft. Yeah. Ooh, like, because, okay, this might be delving into a whole different idea, and I'd love to get your opinion on it. Is that like the down craft? Because it happens a lot. Like, crafts, for whatever reason, they crash, and then we find this technology. I would have to feel like whoever is of that higher vibration or that higher level, whatever, that is more technologically advanced, like, that would be the worst thing if we got a hold of something that could either really advance our culture or destroy us. Like that would be the worst thing to happen. So I don't know. Maybe that's one of the reasons why those light rails exist. Like,
I do agree with you though, Ben, but when you look at this component, you have to remember a lot of contracts have been made between the various governments around the world to abduct humans, whether it's for breeding, human trafficking, food, things of that nature, because we are a resource. We are actually a form of meat for some of these ET beings, for the ones that do eat it. And I don't mean to go into the fear vibration because I really don't appreciate people focusing only on that. But you have to remember there's an exchange for technology and information in exchange for abducting certain people, hybriding certain people, and as well as flat out taking them off the planet.
yeah.
Right. And that's something that, yeah, we don't want to go into that low vibrational place.
But I'm so curious about it.
But it definitely is an aspect of this whole thing, right? I mean, we can't just discount it. Like it doesn't happen. It's a place you have to go, right? And I feel like if you do go there and you are able to explain it and have people understand, maybe we can take this low vibrational idea and kind of raise that vibration, whether or not they want to stay at that level. We as an understanding can raise our own vibration about this lower vibrational thing. Now, we met some people of the new message, right?
Yeah.
And their whole thing is like, we're dumb. Stop talking into these things. They're coming and there's nothing you can do about it, right? So claim your sovereignty, because it is what it is. Like they are like, these things are not good, right?
That's the new message. This
And apparently
great people, by the way. I mean, just
nice. Yeah, they're super awesome people. They're super nice. Yeah. And yeah, they're just trying to help people.
Yeah.
Right.
I agree.
To help people, he apparently received this message from the allies of humanity. Right.
I was trying to think.
And Marshall.
Yes.
I have some of his books that were gifted to me.
Yeah. Right. And they're great books. Right. The thing that's it. Great people, awesome people, right? But the whole thing is like, hey, ETs are just bad, right?
Like, yeah, stop talking to them. And I feel like that is we're focusing now on. I know if we want to just touch on that lower kind of negative thing for a second, I think I agree with you. Like, it's might as well just get out in the open and at least talk about it and have that information known. Maybe this is why these people are focusing on it, because it is like, yeah, there's entities out there that eat people. And I've heard people talk about like, yeah, I sat in a lunchroom on a spaceship while sitting next to a reptilian, and I don't know what type, that was eating raw flesh. I mean, yeah.
But I mean, really, how's that any different than what a lot of humans are doing when they're eating meat? But I want to bring up one experience I think might be interesting to the two of you then while we're discussing it. In one of my encounters, I thought I was projecting around, and I went to this one planet, because when you're astral projecting, it's very easy to go out of this planet, especially if you know what the hell you're doing. And so when I ended up going to this one planet, I found myself in a city, but I found myself inside of a building. And as I started to walk out this building, I was about to go put my hand on the door, and a man put his hand on my shoulder and said, I need you to stop. And then he got me to bend down to look with him. And he opened this little like keyhole type slot he had down below. And he's like, that man across the street has been asking about you. He's looking for someone of your energetic vibration, of your appearance. I'm like, oh, okay. Looking like, okay, so there's humans on this planet. Didn't think to ask what the planet name was. Didn't think to ask the star system, because I was so uncomfortable at the fact that this man knew I was going to be going to this planet. And so I projected my consciousness to a different location, and the man followed me. A moment later, this large black reptilian, which I have now met several times in person as well as astrally, followed me. And when he came up towards me on this next planet, he was several feet away from me, and he was in his full reptilian appearance. And he was actually one of the most beautiful beings that I've ever met. And when I looked at him, I told him, I'm like, I love how shiny your scales are. I love how you're nice and healthy. And he wasn't trying to be intimidating to me. He wasn't trying to be threatening. He said, I require for you to come with me. And so he and I ended up walking out of that building. We ended up going into this vehicle. It was a type of car. It might have been like an older school car, like you'd see in like the 1920s, 1930s kind of appearance. And it was kind of floating off the ground of all things. And I thought this was rather peculiar. And he said, whatever you do, you must not leave my side. I'm like, why is that? He's like, it's not safe for you to be here. I'm like, well, why isn't it safe? And as he and I are driving, I'm looking at the shops in the street, and I see these body parts that are being hung from a couple of the shops, like a butcher shop. And I'm looking like, okay, that's a fetus. Okay, that's a human leg. Okay, that's obviously a thigh and a torso. I'm like, okay, that's terrifying. And he explained that on this planet, that it was actually, humans are a form of meat and it's a form of commerce, and that it would be very dangerous if I were to go off on my own. And he advised me against doing so. And I thought, well, this is really peculiar. He took me to this meeting room at this very rather lush, beautiful type place. And I remember looking at thinking, well, the buildings are all typically quite squat, very close together previously. And now we're going to a very nice area of town. I noticed that behind these garden gates and these larger, almost like brick, not quite brick, but it's almost like that large stone kind of walls, you would see the occasional tree. And I'm like, oh, why are there no trees back there? Why are there only trees over here in the nice area of town? And he explained that water was an indication of wealth. It meant you had so much water to bathe and drink that you're able to give it away to something as beautiful as a plant, or as visually stimulating as a plant. I thought that was interesting. And when he brought me into this meeting room, I'm with several reptilians, several humans, and we're discussing the aspect of trade with humanity, how many humans they would have access and privy to take. And they wanted billions. Now, I'm not trying to go into the fear energy, but they wanted at least a third of the planet. And they were asking my opinion of which planet, or pardon me, which countries would be best to take from. And wow, they really do. Some of them do eat us. Not all of them do. Some of them are actually vegetarian. Some are actually really nice and very kind. When I was very, very sick quite a while ago, I had a reptilian come to me to provide healing for me. And so you can't paint them all with one broad stroke. I do agree with Marshall, where yes, we should be sovereign. We should be intelligent about this. We shouldn't give away, oh, you're, like I talked about previously, oh, you are more evolved than me, therefore smarter than me, therefore take care of me, which is exactly what beings like the Andromedans, the Pleiadians, the light beings do not want for us to do, as well as the Arcturians. They are not wanting to make themselves fully known to humanity, because humanity currently has a savior complex, always looking for someone to help rescue them and be that beautiful little damsel in distress. And that's not what they're wanting to deal with. They're wanting to have things go in a different direction.
Damn.
Whoa. Yes.
So a little heavy, but
no, I love it.
Yeah, me too, because it definitely answers, like, it makes you feel better about it, you know.
Also, props to the dude that just protected you. Just like, that's awesome.
Yeah. So how does this work, right? Like, so say you astral project. I don't know, like, I don't know if this is true, but I've heard that, like, when you astral project, there's like a tether to your body that can never be broken. I don't know if that's a real thing or not.
I've never noticed one, but
okay. Well, yeah. Well, some of the things that I've seen, they're like, yeah, you know, like, don't be scared. You know, it's a very, like, normal thing that you can do. And when you leave your body, just know that you're always, like, your consciousness or your spirit, whatever it is that's astral projecting, is always tethered to your physical body. Yeah. So, like, you'll always be able to come back.
But Donnie Darko, where, like, his
kind of like that. But say, like, in your case, right? Say if that awesome reptilian guy didn't show up, right? And you're astral projecting into this area, can you be killed in the astral world?
And not from what I've noticed.
Okay. So if they were like, okay, I'm looking for somebody specifically like you, this guy didn't show up, some other people noticed you and they were like, we got her. And they come and get you. Like, can you just project yourself back to your body to get out of there?
You can.
Or can they just, like, get you? Like, you've always heard the old thing where, like, oh, if you die in a dream, then you die in real life, you know?
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's true. Like, if you were to die in your astral body, would you die, like, really on Earth? Or would you just reset and come back and wake up and be like, whoa, what was that? Bad dream?
Yeah, you would just reset, from what I've noticed. I've had many dreams where I've had situations where it is like past life memories that are coming forward that are appearing like an astral projection. And you can see how you died many, many times. Pardon me. But when you're looking at that component, that is very different than having the aspect of dying in your astral form. I've had ones where I felt as though I was very close to death, and I would have physical ramifications when I came back into the body, where it's like, okay, my back is really sore, or the aspect of being raped, things like that can carry forward, because the energy body is where this trauma is taking place, and you bring that vibration back into the physical body, causing the physical body to have a reaction to what the energetic body has experienced. So I don't quite know about the aspect of dying, because that is your soul, that is your consciousness, that is the part of you that leaves when the body dies. So to me, it doesn't make sense that it would actually die in a sense that we're perceiving it to.
Can the astral body die?
Not from what I've noticed. That's your soul. I wouldn't think so.
Okay.
Soul, man.
Yeah, I'm
Great movie. Also,
Oh, so good.
That was
so
great. Yeah.
I felt like that was the closest I've been able to understand what happens after you die. And I'm like so chill with it. I loved it. We talked a little bit about it on our last episode, but what did you think, Samantha?
I absolutely adored it. I love the fact that they're assigning personality traits, these little souls. It's like, I'm going to be narcissistic. It's like, oh my God, that's hilarious.
That's just so funny.
Yeah.
Oh, I loved it, man. And then we were talking about like, you're kind of like Moonbeam, you know?
Oh no.
You're kind of like Moonbeam, where you could like most everybody doesn't know that you can go to this realm, and if you've heard about it, you think it's crazy. But Moonbeam knows what's going on, you know, and you're kind of like Moonbeam.
Yeah.
I wish I could spin a sign like that. That'd be so cool.
I love the way he just pulls up in that ship listening to Bob Dylan first. It's so awesome.
So
dumb. That's amazing. I love that. But
yeah,
that is kind of similar to what it's like, though. I mean, have you guys ever, when you've gone to sleep at night and you've had really weird dreams, ever noticed that you find yourself in a really weird situation where it's either black and white or completely dark or things like that, or vivid color even, depending upon where you're projecting to?
So that's very funny you say that. A few months ago, because you had just said something earlier about how you wake up from these and like you'll have like physical effects. I had the most vivid, intense dream I've ever had in my entire life a couple months ago. And I'm not sure, like it was like, I know that there was a building and like I walk into these doors and man, everything was like this like reddish, pinkish, purplish color. Like it was almost like a nightclub vibe. And I walked in and oh my God, I've never felt so good in my life. Like physical good, like I've never felt that. In this dream, I'm just chatting with, they're not people. Like I know that they're not people, man. Like whatever it is. And I'm drinking this thing that's kind of like, it's kind of got this like Sprite,
delicious,
maybe flavor to it. And I'm just having a great time. I feel so good. And I know I'm walking around and I'm talking, and then all of a sudden somebody says, "Is it time for you to go?" And I said, "Oh, dude, I'm not going anywhere." I was like, "I'm having a great time. I'm not going anywhere."
It's like the person at the party's like trying to tell you, like, "Hey, dude, buddy, you're a little drunk. Like, you need to go."
You're like, "No way, send it." Right?
Yeah.
And I remember,
give me your keys.
As when I said, "No, I'm not going nowhere. This is great. I feel so good." Whatever it was that was standing in front of me, it seemed like the face changed. Like it wasn't scary, but it definitely wasn't like nice. I don't think what it was.
Uncomfortable.
It was like everybody was having a good time. And this thing was like, "Hey, it's time for you to go back." And I was like, "No, I'm hanging out." And he was like, And so he kind of like did this thing to like push me back to like my body. It was the just most insane dream. And I woke up and I was like, oh, like I took like a breath and I was like, I feel so good.
Yeah.
And then when I realized like, shit, I'm back here, like, I was really bummed. And I've never had a dream like that. And it was as vivid as the star window dream.
Oh, shit.
Those are the two most vivid dreams I've ever had in my life.
Damn.
And that was so cool. Like, I don't know what that is, but if that's anything like what you experience, like when you go have fun in this astral plane, I'm going to start meditating again because that was incredible. Like, of course, if that's your service, then hell yeah. Partying and drinking Sprite with cool, whatever they are, I'm down.
Well, if you want to start astral projecting, there's a wonderful book to learn how to do it called Astral Dynamics by Robert Bruce. You should be able to get it on Amazon for $20, $25. It's actually one of the easiest ways to learn how to do it very safely, to have control while you're doing it. That way nothing jumps into your body, because the last thing you want to do is project in a bad way and then have a being attach onto your auric system and start influencing your thoughts, your realities, get you into sex, drugs, or alcohol in like a really heavy negative way.
So that sounds like rock and roll, right?
No, rock and roll is great. Sex, wonderful. Very good for the body, very good for the soul, very good for activating the Kundalini and the chakra system if it's done in the right way. But I'm talking about when an entity attachment connects onto your auric system and starts to make you have, honestly, either pedophilic intentions or thoughts, or bestiality thoughts and intentions, rape, things like that. Because sometimes when we are projecting, if our vibration is really out of sorts, like let's say you're insanely drunk, so it's your best friend's wedding, and then you project out of your body because that's what you do, and you now have this like really crazy wonky vibration going around you, you're making yourself more vulnerable to something to latch onto your aura, which we don't want to see.
That makes total sense. I always thought I was just passing out.
You got the sleepy entity that latched onto you, dude. It was like, dude, hey, let's take a nap. Let's go.
That's awesome.
I love that analogy. Like, it's almost, I kind of look at it in a way that at any time and any day in the physical world on earth, you could walk out and go get a coffee down the street. Okay, cool. But there's a chance that a car behind you could not be paying attention and run you over. It's still a little, it's not completely full safe, not dangerous. If as long as you know what you're doing, you'll be, there's a certain high percentage, maybe 80, I'll throw out 80%. There's still that chance that a freak accident can happen. I feel like that's the kind of vibe I'm getting from you is like, yeah, you can do it smart and you could go down to the street, but if you want to go to New York and back, you got to know what the fuck you're doing.
Right. Yeah.
Well, the last thing you want to do is project out of your body and just have the first thought that comes to mind. If it's a negative thought, take you to a lower vibrational place where you're not able to really handle the vibration, where something's going to give you terrifying nightmares and thoughts and then follow you home. You want to be able to be in that more clean vessel state where you're actually like, okay, I want to go meet my soul family. I want to meet that beautiful white mantis that works with me, or I want to meet the beings that are more connected toward the dwarf energy or the lion energy that works with me. More of that soul origin, the soul family. So if you think about them when you're astral projecting, well, guess what? Just like in Star Trek, you go through warp speed and voila, here you are in front of these beings. And they're like, okay, hi, nice to see you. Or sometimes they will come find you because they'll recognize your vibration has shifted.
We're having dinner, dude. Like, you have an extra chair. We're expecting you.
So if you were some for some reason to have like this negative entity attach itself to you or follow you back, how do you get rid of it?
Well, there's a number of different ways. You can ask that your angels, your spirit guides to assist you in getting rid of them, which is fine. That's one manner. You could do things to raise your vibration. That way it's not able to hold on to your frequency, because essentially it will try to get you trapped within like a very narrow bandwidth of vibrational energy, typically very much out of the root chakra. So that's where we get the obsession with sex, violence, drugs, alcohol, things that really keep you in that baser level emotion, fear around money, things of that nature. Right. And so doing things to raise your vibration, not drinking for a few weeks, definitely not partaking in drugs. If you are having sex, having love making higher vibrational sex, not necessarily, pardon my language, FUCKING, things like that, just to help shift your vibration. Of course, meditating, yoga, higher vibrational foods will help you as well. So things of that nature.
That's very interesting. Dang. It's kind of like, dude, what is love, dude?
Yeah.
You know, when you think about it, you're like, what is love? What is it? I because like I think about it and it's like, yeah, we're nice dudes, right? But I mean, it's like, sure, maybe like, what? Like, I'm kind of like overly lazy. Like maybe I smoke too much pot. I probably masturbate too much. Like, how do I know? Like, is there a negative?
I think you would know if it was a controlling.
Yeah, you would.
Like you wouldn't be cool. I wouldn't hang around you if this right. Like that would be like evil. Like we're talking.
You would feel it. Typically, yeah, you'd feel it. And
I've heard you say things like, yeah, sometimes this other entity will like take over, and you've had to like learn how to, this entity will be like that good person, but you've had to learn how to like see the vibration, and you're like, oh, you're acting like that guy, but I know that there's like a negative entity that's attached to you, because I can see that that's not the vibration that's supposed to be there, you know? That's cool. And so for me, like when I heard you say that, I was like, oh, dude, like, yeah, I'll be like, we're like nice dudes, but like, how do we know if there's not some like negative thing just like attached to us from something we did when we were like 12 and didn't realize it's just been following us and creating like this world that we've taken this path. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, there's a couple things you can look at. One, do animals shy away from you? Do they run when they see you? Do children run when they see you? Do they feel uncomfortable in your presence? Do a lot of people tend to avoid you? Are you attracting a lot of other people that are really toxic, manipulative, narcissistic, psychopathic in nature? Because of course, vibrational like attracts like. That's one of the main fundamental principles of this universe, is recognizing our vibrational frequency. And so when you find that you're actually turned off from the company of being in like the presence of someone who's highly narcissistic or dysfunctional and really addicted to drugs and alcohol, those people are more inclined to have those entities attached to them. Neither one of you has anything crazy like that going on, so I would be concerned. Marijuana, yes, it can throw off your vibration, but that doesn't throw off your vibration a lot. It's not like you're dropping tablets of ecstasy every week and you're doing crystal meth, things that are making you more open to the negative archonic type entities attaching onto the aura, leading you towards the pedophilic and bestialic type thoughts, as well as the murderous type ones. So no, I'm not concerned about that with either of you.
Dude, that makes me feel really good.
It does. Actually. I feel really good.
Because it's like, I started listening to you and I was like, fuck, dude, it was like WebMDing myself. And I was like, everything is wrong with me, man. Like,
I did.
Yeah, go ahead.
You had said like, yeah, it's as you're saying this, I'm remembering like, oh yeah, I remember you saying this in a previous video that I watched, and it made me really look in the past couple of weeks, like at those negative thoughts and those feelings like of self-doubt.
Another beer.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, we're not sitting here taking shots.
This is literally the only day I drink beer.
I'm not worried. Enjoy your drink.
But what I loved about what your perspective on, if you had these like, you know, dark feelings or ideas every now and then, just think of them as a spirit and just say like, hey, I don't need you. Like that made me feel good about that. And I've been practicing that, and it's like, it works, just acknowledging it.
I agree. And there's two things I want to bring up. First of all, masturbation isn't bad. Most natural thing in the world. Don't even worry about that. And when you're doing it, please focus your energy on something you want to manifest, not just the person whose face you're staring at, because you don't want to be sending that person energy. You want to be taking that energy, which you're creating a larger aura with. You're connecting and activating all the chakras. You're moving your Kundalini energy out of your root, up along the chakra system and back down again. You want to be putting that energy towards something that you want, whether it's a vehicle, money, spouse, situation, you name it, this podcast that you have blowing up, things of that nature. So put your energy and focus towards what it is you're wanting to manifest, because sexual energy is part of sex, especially masturbation can be used as part of sex magic. So keeping that consideration in mind. The second part is
awesome.
It is. What a lot of people don't realize that a lot of our basic magical practices that we have here on Earth, we did actually get from a deeper understanding of energy, vibration from a lot of the beings that we encounter. But secondly, the other thing I want to talk to you about is when you're looking at the aspect of not so much the sexuality, but when you're looking at the vibrations and the thoughts that you have. I learned that from the light beings and the Pleiadians, the higher vibrational ones that I encounter, because Pleiadians are broken into two classifications. We have the fifth dimensional ones, which are slightly more evolved than us, more psychic, more empathic, very technologically advanced in comparison to us. But then you also have the ones that are closer to light beings, which are a few vibrations above them, which have almost like a bluey type essence to them. Still have slight humanoid or bipedal type features, but more transparent because they're more energetically based. And they're the ones that taught me that we have to be very aware of our thoughts, feelings, and vibrations, because the amount of archonic and lower vibrational beings that are feeding off of humanity's energetic system on this planet. And that's why I see most people in a very toxic, negative mind loop.
So, hey, I'm going to go here because it's episode 69. So why not? Okay. You know, you've got love. You've got this beautiful love sex that you have, you know, sometimes you get that like it's time to have some dirty,
sometimes you gotta
some
squeeze,
stanky sex. You know what I'm saying?
Sometimes you gotta
It's like it's
squeeze,
time to get.
please.
It's like, you know, like
Mhm.
what is that? You know, like
Mhm.
is there like maybe this like darker like primal force that like you tap into like for certain energies that like could be useful, but you don't want to be there all the time? You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yeah, I do. As long as it is between two consenting adults that are having a form of connection towards one another, whether it's a very strong platonic love-based type energy rather than say the one night stand energy, you're still circulating the energy between the two like auric systems in a very healthy manner. Think of it like a very cyclical way. And so if you were to be having sex with someone, your energy is of course going from your root chakra up through your crown, connecting to the top of their chakra and cascading back down into your own. So you are doing an energetic exchange as well as a physical exchange of touching, as well as fluids, so on and so forth, because our fluids of course do hold on to our vibration. So when you, sorry to be so crass, but when you ejaculate into someone, you're leaving part of your vibration in that person. And when you have sex with, of course, you form energetic cords and ties with. And so everyone that you have sex with is either depleting your energy field or they are adding to it, and they're making you have more energy. So in essence, the more sexual partners you have, if you're not in a love-based, happy, good state with those people, whether you're in a relationship or not, then you're having your energy field going off in a whole bunch of different directions, which can actually be very detrimental, especially when you're trying to have control of your thoughts, feelings, emotions, and energetic body. Now, yes, of course, you can go and enjoy a very intense, all over the place sexual experience with someone, and that's completely fine. It's not saying that you have to have baby making sex all the time. It's a matter of more so, as long, it doesn't matter if it's BDSM, normal sex, or whatever, as long as the two are in a state of harmony and alignment where their vibrations, and it's very consenting and very love based, that's good, healthy sex. But when you start looking at things like rape, and you start looking at people that are having sex with someone and the other partner isn't into it, then you start to notice this vampiric type energy exchange. So if you've ever had sex with someone who wasn't like into it, or one of your spouses were to kind of manipulate you to have sex, you have sex out of guilt, then your energy body is going to feel very drained, very constricted around the body afterwards. You're going to feel this sense of like shame, uncomfortableness, things of that nature, right. Especially look at aspects like rape, where we cause actual bleeding within the root chakra and the sacral chakra, as well as the heart chakra. So many people that have experienced rape, in particular childhood rapes, are more prone to reproductive cancers, be it breast, testicular, penile, vaginal, uterine, things of that nature. And this is because the energetic imbalance that has taken place within that chakra system.
Whoa.
Wow.
So all of that makes so much sense to me. Like,
yeah, it's like you don't know anything about it.
Like that vibe where like, if you're not into the same thing, it's like, yeah.
And then when you hear it, you're like, oh yeah, duh, right? Duh. Like, it's the same thing. It's like,
yeah, duh. I hate to do this. I do have to go to the bathroom. Does anybody else need to go to the bathroom?
Go for it, man. we can keep it going, man.
Oh yeah, it's all good. No worries.
But yeah, I mean, so like that's super interesting. That, you know, it's like, so when it comes to the chakra, right?
Yes.
How do you know, like, I guess it's just as simple as like listening to your own body, you know, kind of maybe feeling it. But for those who don't really know how to do that, if you have like this clog in your chakra, like, how do you know, and what can you do to clear it, right? Because I know you can go to you know, like one of these healers, and they're like, yeah, I can totally unclog your chakra or whatever. But like, if you don't know anybody that lives next to you that does something like that, I mean, like, is there a way that you can do it yourself?
Well, of course, there are a number of different ways. You can learn how to practice something like quantum touch, hands of light, Reiki, things of that nature for free on YouTube, as well as any, there's a lot of different accredited online sources that can help you to start becoming more in touch with the energy body. Some of the symptoms that are in place when someone is having an imbalance within the chakra system actually range for a number of different things. We'll start with the root because it's at the bottom. Located at your genitalia at the base of your spine is what's known as your root chakra. When you have a root chakra imbalance, it means that you're going to go through things in a male case of erectile dysfunction, prostate problems. You'll have, how can I explain this nicely? an overactive sex drive or no sex drive at all is present within both parties. For women, they'll have abnormal bleeding going on. They'll also have vaginal dryness. Now going up to the sacral chakra, you can have the inability to conceive, the issues around your family and communication with them, feeling as though you don't belong within the family system and dynamic, as well as gut problems. So IBS, gas, bloating, things of that nature. Maybe up to the solar plexus, which is located behind the belly button. Difficulty perceiving who you are, how you fit into this world. Quite often they'll have like a larger gut around that region because they won't have a sense of balance and a sense of identity. Now going up to the heart chakra, you can have irregular heart palpitations, lung problems, asthma, bronchitis, as well as we'll see irregular heartbeats taking place. On an emotional level, you'll know someone who has difficulty opening up in their relationships, very guarded, feeling as though they cannot be vulnerable with their partners. Throat chakra, people who stumble over their words, stuttering, lisps, people that are having difficulty articulating their emotions and thoughts very clearly, as well as the physical ones, things like tonsillitis, as well as swelling of the throat or lymph nodes. Moving up to the crown chakra, people that are prone to headaches, migraines, decreased psychic abilities, people that are noticing that they can't actually visualize things, vision problems, so the need to wear glasses, myself included, things of that nature. When you have either an overactive third eye or an underactive third eye, as well as the crown chakra is more so prone towards feelings of lightheadedness, dizziness, difficulty with memories, Alzheimer's, things of that nature.
Interesting. Well, you know, because I've always wondered, like, well, now that you explained it, I think it might my curiosity is gone now. But you know, I always kind of felt like maybe like my chakras were like blocked, like up to here somewhere. And then like there's like this tiny stream of like energy that makes it, you know, which you know is like, hey, I have these cool ideas every now and then, and like that's why, because like maybe I'm so blocked. But like a lot of the stuff that you mentioned, like I don't really have like the symptoms of, but
I'm pretty sure like a wacky inflatable man coming out of your
off the top of my head. But
well, you have to remember, you might go ahead.
Go for it.
Oh, you might have the bottom chakras open up and then have a block around the solar plexus. So if you have a block at any of the chakras up into a certain point, you might only have that one chakra creating one specific problem, where you might not have all those things in place. And so you could have all your chakras blocked between here and your third eye, your crown open, in which case you get psychic information, but you'd have problems with all the rest. And the same can be said with any one of the chakras. You might only have a problem with 1, 2, or 3 of them. That's very common as well. And depending upon the level of block, you might encounter issues to varying degrees.
Yeah. I need to find somebody who does that.
We should buy some crystals and I don't know.
I don't trust you, dude.
That's what I was getting at. Like, totally mess everything up.
I don't want some like evil thing like attaching itself to me. Next week I'm fucking a goat or something. And it's like, dude, this is exactly what I didn't want to happen. And I let Ben do a chakra alignment on my body. And now I have this obsession now I have with nipple piercings with Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, bold choice, but you know, you could always do energy work on yourself. You don't have to go to someone else. There are a number of different ways you can do it. There are a number of different books out there that you can order off of Chapters, Amazon, things of that nature to better assist you with learning how to open up your energy body, how to clear it out and get rid of any blocks you do have, which will better connect you to your psychic abilities, your higher self, your soul family, and the extraterrestrials and multidimensionals working with you.
Interesting. That's cool, man.
So fun.
I know. What do you think about binaural beats?
I like them. I use them quite often because they put me in a more easily catatonic type state, which better enables me to have my third eye activated and to see the beings more clearly with the physical eyes. But I don't necessarily recommend them for everyone. With me, because of some of the programming that I have in place, certain tones and frequencies aren't necessarily a good thing. And in particular, certain kinds of pop music I can't listen to because it puts me into one of my altars, so I have to be very cautious of. Binaural beats are, for the most part, fine, but you have to be aware. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just saying, I can't listen to pop music either.
I like some of it, but I notice that I slip into my altars very easily, depending upon what I'm listening to, so I really don't try to listen to it very often, which is hard.
Is that an MK Ultra thing?
Yes, it is. It's also related to being a MyLab because MyLabs do have a number of different programs in place, and Culture typically does have things where we experience sexual abuse at a young age, in particular done by handlers to help keep us into specific altered and modified states of being. The two do overlap quite a bit, a lot more than what a lot of people do realize. So almost all the MCultures will be some form of MyLab because they will have other training in place, whether it's assassin training or telepathic training, receiving information, holding on a psychic level, and then having it almost like be accessed through a series of sexual acts. It's very common as well. So they have to be very careful of their triggers, which can be done in tones, frequencies, visual objects, and phrases and words. So learning, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna riff off of tones, phrases, and words. You said you can't handle some frequencies, and then you went into music. But I think just focusing on for a second those tones and frequencies, I had an experience with this. I mean, wonderful man, such a nice dude. I feel so bad because dude, I'm never like confrontational or like if you're bothering me, like I'll deal with it. It's fine as long as everybody else is cool. If everybody else is cool, like I can endure. Yeah. But this particular scenario, I just could not stand these frequencies that this person was emitting with these like horn type things. And he was playing this music like nonstop, and Joe could barely even hear those tones. But I was just like, I can't hear myself think. Like I feel agitated. I feel terrible. And I felt like, man, am I like demonic? Like, am I just like everybody else feels good around these like vibes? And I'm like, I hate it.
And then we met Vicky.
Yeah. And then she fixed it.
That's good. It could just be an energetic imbalance, or it could be something more so related to your combination of extraterrestrial multidimensional DNA. All humans on this planet are comprised of a mixture of genetics that comes from a variety of ETs. We're not just straight humans like some of our star family is, where they're just straight human DNA, hence not shut down for their psychic abilities. We are very much so modified here. And depending upon your particular combination, you might be more susceptible to that tone and frequency.
Yeah. I'm telling you, it was just such a weird thing that it like immediately put me into this, like, I just didn't know where these feelings were coming from. Like, I was like, I need to confront this person and ask him kindly. I still did it. I asked him like, hey, dude, I'm sorry. We're like, I didn't want to explain like, hey, it's making me feel some sort of way. I just said, hey, we're going to have a guest on over here. We're at a conference and yeah. Anyway, I just have always felt weird about that. So I'm curious as to those tones and frequencies. And I did listen to one of your past videos on like certain words. You came up with a word that was like something butterfly or something like that. That was just an example. That's always so interesting to me. That tones and frequencies or certain words can be a trigger to push you into that altered state. Like I'm fully on board with that. I think that is definitely a thing. I don't know. So like, is it possible that these triggers are put into our movies and TV shows?
Yes. Very commonly, in fact. A lot of people that aren't necessarily aware that they're sleepers, so people who are going through the projects can be very easily triggered depending upon certain movies they watch, whether it's things like Manchurian Candidate, I would like to say, is one of them that can send people into an altered state. Of course, there are other programs in place, things like the Catcher in the Rye is one for certain people. Alice in Wonderland is one that triggers me that I have to be very careful if I watch because it switches my brain frequency. And I notice that my eyes kind of change color as well. They go to being more darker. So I have to be very careful when it comes to some of these because of how they react within the physical body as well as the mental body. It puts you into a different headspace, which people aren't necessarily aware of. A lot of the music that's quite popular right now, a lot of the stuff on the top 100 actually does alter the vibrational frequency of people, putting them into more of the root chakra. It takes them out of the higher vibrational psychic planes of being. And so for almost all psychics, before we end up doing any work, especially when we're talking to someone's angels, guides, we're very careful about the things that we listen to, the things we watch, and the things that we ingest prior to a session, because it can throw off our vibrational frequency in such a way as to make it very difficult to connect in.
All of that makes so much sense to me. My friends always say like, hey, so what are you listening to? I'm like, I don't listen to music. I have like 3 bands that I listen to, maybe 5, because I'm so sensitive to it. If I turn on the radio, like if some hardcore rap comes on and I'm not just calling out rap. It could be metal. It could be a samba. Country, absolutely. I'm so sensitive to it that it can ruin my day, like for the rest of the day. And I just don't want to explain that every time. So I'm just like, I don't know. I just joke about it. I only listen to my own music. That's the joke. But the reality is that it honestly puts me in a different bin. Like I'm a different dude. Like,
Of course.
I feel the wrong music. It's pretty crazy.
And what you'll find as you become more sensitive to all this is that you're actually going to notice your music change immensely. When my kids were very little, I typically listened to mostly classical music, binaural beats, sounds of water and nature, and it actually kept me in a much more psychic place where I connected to a lot more higher vibrational beings than now that they're older and in dance, and some of the things they like is this really chaotic top 100. I'm like, oh goodness, this is too hard for me. No, thank you.
Yeah. Oh, don't you dare look back. Just keep your eyes on me. That's like the most recent one I've heard on the radio for like the past year straight. That was like, okay, I can listen to that. But it just happens so often. But okay, just one last thing about the conditioning or these frequencies and visuals. Like some of my favorite. Okay, Joe always makes fun of me for this, but one of my favorite series, dude, I'm gonna makes fun of, but I love it because of the scenery. It's this dreary. I love dreariness and like rain, mist in like a mountainous forest, like Oregon, Washington. This movie has to be about vampires. Okay. It's like
Twilight.
I didn't say it. My wife is like, babe, just watch it. Just watch it. But I don't know. It just I'm not like paying attention the whole time. I'm not like super it, but I just love the vibe, like it puts me in a good vibe.
And
hey, if you like it, do it.
I'm more of a Wayne's World kind of a guy. That puts me in a great vibe.
I could see that.
Is do ETs enjoy like our art, or do they even care?
Yeah, to an extent they do. One thing I've found when I'm quite often in craft, in particular dealing with my hybrid children, they will ask me project stories out of my mind of things that I've either seen that were interesting children's shows or things that have happened here on Earth. Because when you're on craft in particular, your psychic abilities tend to be amplified. I'm not sure if this is because of the vibration of the craft or because the hangout with the beings that are of a much higher vibration than us. I believe it's a combination of the two, where we're no longer contained within the net or the matrix around the planet Earth, which actually tends to limit a lot of our psychic information and capabilities. And so quite often I will be sitting on the floor with my hybrids, having one on my lap and having a bunch of them around me, or even standing with them, hugging them or holding their hands. And I'll be projecting into the space around us the different stories that my children have liked, or the things that I find to be interesting. And they like seeing the visual representation of things like that. So yes, they do have an appreciation for it. They do have a different idea as to what art is, and they do have a very strong difference as to how they end up expressing their own selves creatively. You won't find like paintings and canvases on craft from any of the ones that I've noticed. And I do believe that has to do with the chemical composition within a lot of the paints that we end up using. They're actually quite toxic, especially if you have them to your skin. Things like the grays are very sensitive with how their skin actually absorbs the things that are around them. And so quite often when I'm going to be having contact on craft, I find that I won't feel the need to put on perfume or scented lotions and stuff like that before I go to bed or that day. And then lo and behold, later that day I end up seeing a being, and it's because the being sent me a telepathic message of, oh my God, that's way too strong. Do not put that on. And they'll almost like give you that hint not to do it. Yeah.
That's super cool. Because I thought, like as a human, man, I would love to go like to like another planet or like hang out with some other beings, and like I would love to check out their culture and just like their art and like what they do, like what is like their entertainment, like I think one of the coolest things to me would be like to like meet an ET and like show him the Beastie Boys, or like just hang out, like he's like, what do you do on a daily basis, right? They probably already know, but it's like, I'm like to, like when I meet like a new buddy or something like that, it's always like, oh, being big music guys. I mean, that's kind of our, like a big, go-to conversation starter. It's like, oh yeah, music and YouTube, some videos or whatever. Like we literally, I can literally spend just countless amounts of hours just listening to music and like watching music videos and stuff like that. Like I love it. And like in today's like music industry and stuff, it's not really about the music video anymore. It's not as important as it used to be, but like back in the day, like in the 90s and like you know, up until like that early to mid 2000s where like Road Rules and like the Jersey Shore dorks friggin' got on MTV. I mean, like that was like the whole thing. It was like your creativity, like your art. Like, have you ever seen a Tool video? Like, holy cow, man! Like that's impressive. Like, what do you sound like Brothers Quay? You know what I'm saying? Like that art, that film, like that to me is fascinating. And I would love to see like, come on, like if I meet a Gray, like what are you doing, dude? Like, are you really just flying around in space picking people up? Like, is that like your thing
on your off
like,
time?
If that's the case, then, like, yeah, meeting you would be cool because I would know that you're an ET. But other than that, you're boring. I mean, like, what? Like, you're gonna like talk to me telepathically? Like, yeah, I guess that's cool. But like, where do we go from here? Like, I don't want to hang out with you if you're just gonna be like this little worker bee of the universe. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I do.
I don't know. Like, and then like a light being, like that maybe just be like, I don't know what that was, but it was cool. I couldn't comprehend it, but it was cool, you know? And it's like, where do you go from there? It's like, I don't know. Like, do they try and like, I guess like, do they even try to like relate to you like on some form? Like, I guess like we've heard stories about the mantid beings, how like sometimes they'll show up and they'll be wearing like wigs or like hats, like have like a personality, like they're kind of humorous.
Have you ever heard of that?
Like, not with mantis. I've seen them in purple robes before, or being just completely naked, but I haven't seen anyone wearing a hat. I'd love to see a mantis in a hat. That'd be adorable.
We've heard a story of like this mantis that showed up, and it was like it was wearing a blonde wig, and it had like fake red lips on. And
just to like make the person feel comfortable, like, hey, I'm not here.
Yeah. And there was like a couple other beings in the room, but it kind of took their attention off of the other beings because they were like, they were obviously scared. Like they're like, what the hell? Like seeing just a mantis, like a giant mantis being like in your room is one thing, but then like like it looks like Dolly Parton. Like that's another like whole other level of like hilarity and insanity at the same time. Like,
yeah,
I don't know. So I would assume they do try and relate to you on some level, but you know, I guess you can only go so far, right? Like, well, just I couldn't relate to them. I couldn't.
It really depends, like on what level of relationship you have with a lot of these beings. So these are beings that your soul has incarnated with in previous incarnations. When you see them, you recognize them, and you'll be more prone to hugging them and trying to talk to them and see how they're doing. And they'll, like one time I saw this really beautiful Gray. He actually has a head that's divided into like two parts of the back, very similar to like a heart type thing. One of my favorite beings. Saw him at one of my parents' house a very long time ago. And when I saw him, I remember going up to him and hugging him, saying, "Phoebe, I'm so happy to see you." And he sent me this tremendous amount of love, and he sent me this energy of, "Hey, look, we really want to start connect with you. We're so happy you're finally ready to see us more consciously and more in a more capable fashion." Whereas sometimes you will encounter things like the Grays, which people think are very flat and stoic and very cold and no emotion, and I get that, and quite often they can be, especially if you look at it from their perspective. If I'm a Gray and I am abducting you, and I know that you're not likely to remember this encounter, and I'm here to give you your checkup, and I'm here to see what the toxins levels are like in your body, and that you're not quite going through the awakening process. Yeah, you might remember a tiny bit of it, but I'm not going to bother engaging in conversation with you. I'm not going to bother sharing information with you because I'm not going to see you as someone who's going to recall it. Whereas if you actually tell these beings, "Hey, I'm remembering what's happening here," they will start to talk to you. They will start to interact with you in a different way because they view you as more conscious. And that is when you start to have the deeper, more in-depth conversations with them, where you can ask them questions and have them give you information as well. Now, this does differ being to being depending upon their intentions towards you. For instance, if you find yourself in a MILAB encounter in your deep underground military base and you have 3 Grays chasing after you because you've taken some of the implants in your body and deactivated them, and it's their job to go collect you so that this MILAB personnel can put that back in your body, well, they're not really going to be as open to sharing information with you as if you're going on to an ET craft and you're dealing with hybridization. You're asking them, "Why is there this beautiful orange orb coming out of my body? Oh, it has a fetus in it? Okay, how far along is that? Okay, who's the father?" They're more inclined to share information with you. So you see how there's that distinction between even though they're the same species, different ways in which they'd have this reaction towards you. So that is something to take into consideration as well. I do find the Greys typically to be quite lovely. When I've encountered them, typically, they have been more like willing to be affectionate with me. They have been very silly with me. Some of the ETs that I've encountered actually are very diverse in their personality and their interests. In particular, some of the hybrids, which have a combination of multiple ET DNAs or human and ET DNAs. In particular, one female hybrid stands out to me where she has a love, whether it might be more of like a spouse type love, because that's kind of energy she explained, where she was looking for a specific kind of oak desk for the gentleman. She collected playing cards, she had books, she had a dried dead snake on her desk because she had a space that was specific for her. And I wasn't sure why there's this little yellow dried snake, but it was she had an interest in earth things like the botany, the elemental aspect, the literature, because that was part of her heritage, and she had an interest in talking about that as well. So yes, some of the ETs are much more complex than what people are expecting. I do believe those ones aren't necessarily as talked about as ones who are believed to probe people.
Right.
I have never thought about this. You just brought up a really interesting idea. Like, have you ever thought about what an ET, like an individual's room, looks like?
Right, like where does that guy sleep? Like, does he have like a Van Halen poster on the wall?
Yeah.
Like,
A race car bed?
A lava lamp? Like, or
like,
is it boring?
I put on that yellow snake, the yellow snake skin. Like, that's fucking cool. Like, I would love that in my house. Like, that'd be sick.
Yeah,
that is super interesting. I've never thought about it. That
dude.
As someone who's afraid of snakes, I wasn't exactly viewed as thick and awesome. I was like, oh god. Please don't let that be a lie.
This is a bad one.
And we're sure of that.
Yeah, but said that like if we ever got taken, they would probably just drop us right off. They'd be like, these guys are serious about. They laugh about everything. They're making fun of us. They're making fun of us. They would just drop us off.
No, I wouldn't see it that way. A lot of them would actually like the fact that you're laughing, therefore raising the vibration, therefore more comfortable in their presence. So they'd probably be more likely to take the two of you together because you'd actually calm each other down and keep each other in a more stable state.
Yes, that's what would need to happen.
We're just like
we'd like wake up on a table and like we'd be like, do you know who the Beastie Boys are?
That's probably not the weirdest thing they've ever heard. I mean, if you're a Grey who's dealing with humans and you're abducting them frequently, and most are in a cat talk state, you probably hear some pretty ridiculous things. Because I know I've said some really stupid things on crowd.
You're like, the Beasties wrote a song called Intergalactic Planetary. That song's about you. That's about you.
But sorry, I just want to interject this quickly. I have seen two rooms in relation to ETs. I have seen a room that had a lot of Greys that were on bunk beds about 3 high, and they all appeared to be in a more out cold state. This was in one of my MyLab encounters, and so I don't believe the Greys, from what I've noticed, have individual rooms in the same way that we would require private quarters. Whereas one of the ETs that I saw more recently in the last week or so, she was a variety of hybrid, and she took me into her room, and there was more of like a bed that didn't really have sheets or a pillow, but more of like a mattress type thing on one side of the wall, and 2 chairs for sitting, and almost like the slight, almost like country type section. I wasn't quite sure what that was about, but I was in her room for a few minutes. And those are the only 2 bedrooms I recall seeing. But go ahead.
That's so cool.
That's so awesome.
Do aliens abduct other aliens? Like, is there like another race that's going through the same thing that we are, except for they just know about it,
I honestly don't know when it comes to that. I wouldn't be surprised based upon what I've noticed. If you think about the aspect of how some of the more negative reptilians, the Draconis reptilians, are in the habit of eating other species, in particular on a more physical capacity rather than eating the vibrational capacity, yes, I would say they are abducting those others from other planets. So.
Yeah, because that's something I never thought about. But you had said something earlier, and I was like,
"That sounds so simple."
It's like
why have we asked that question?
An ET mixed with other ET races. I mean, they must be doing some sort of hybridization program with other ET races, right? I mean, it's like a Grey goes and finds some Pleiadian dude, and he's like, I'm taking you for a little bit, and like, God damn it, Fred got us again, but they know each other like on a name basis.
Yeah. Oh, you!
It would be kind of like how like a farmer lives next to another farmer, and like one farmer will take a cow or something and then put it back on that guy's land or something, and like, dude, Farmer Joe or whatever took a cow again, like
And now he's got COVID. No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it much more expensive?
Well,
I don't know.
I think that's interesting, but no, I don't think the Greys are very easily able to access the Pleiadians. A lot of the other humanoid races and a lot of the other races around actually have protection around their planets, and they're aware of the other extraterrestrial multidimensional beings. And so they have not only energetic capacities around them, but better protection. The Pleiadians, although seen as a very peace, love, and light race, yes, they are, but they're also formidable enemies because they have been able to stay away from the reptilians for a very long time. Hence the reason they're very much so on our side, for the most part, trying to be of assistance to us to get us out of the reptilian control structure.
Does the planet Earth have like a protection, or is it like just all the space junk we launched out there and now it's like that's our protection? We just decided to launch a bunch of trash out into space. Like I've heard like there's like this supposedly an energetic field, like a net that's around the Earth, but I don't know anything about it.
There is a net that is around the planet, but it also does impact our consciousness. That's part of why we've noticed humanity, for the most part, is being kept in a very dumbed down state. For the most part, our species is actually fairly intelligent, quite psychic, and very capable. However, we have been deprogrammed out of it. And so we've noticed major fluctuations and sounds going around the planet, where we notice these really intense energies kind of coming over the collective. Most people you've talked to in the last month are feeling anxious, depressed, tired, hopeless. They're feeling really out of sorts. And that does have to do with the energies that are being broadcasted at this time. A lot of the extraterrestrials and multidimensionals that are out in the universe, actually, a lot of them are quite benevolent towards us. They don't really necessarily have negative intentions. They aren't necessarily fully in our best interest. Quite a few of them are, but not all of them are. And so it's not that they're not willing to come down here. It's that they have decided to step back and keep their own. It's almost like they're willing to have this, we are not going to intervene unnecessarily clause for the most part until intervention is asked for. And so that is why it's very important when you're wanting to connect with the benevolent aspect of these beings to work on your psychic abilities to make sure you're tapping into the right group, and also to be able to tap into your soul family and have those be the ones that are contacting you, because they will treat you with much more dignified respect than beings that have no place of connection towards you. And that's for a lot of people. And they're like, I just want to be abducted. And like, what are you doing? You're not thinking. You're like going out into the street saying, I just want to have someone take me somewhere. You're hitchhiking. Exactly. Yeah. It's very, very dangerous.
Take your towel.
Leg thing.
Oh, hitchhiker is nice.
Always take your towel. Be safe.
I agree. And that's a very dangerous thing to do. And I think that's part of what Marshall is bringing up in his books, is he's mentioned the fact of how we have to be very logical and intelligent about this. Whereas most people, they're like, yay, more advanced beings, exciting. It's like, really keep your wits about you. Be intelligent about this.
Definitely.
Discernment is another word that you've been saying a lot tonight that like totally applies. I think that's like the overall message here. Like, if you're listening to this right now just because you think me and Joe are funny and you've been listening to this show and you're a little interested in aliens, I mean, if anything you could learn from tonight is, I think, discernment, because I think this stuff is happening whether we like it or not. And all you can do, that's your only power. Like, discern what seems legit, what seems evil. I don't know where I'm going with that idea, but I don't know. I just feel like that's the word of the night.
Definitely. I think my new favorite quote is, always have an open mind, but not so open that your mind falls out.
That's cute. I like that.
That's Einstein, right?
Yeah. I think, it's probably something Eric said.
Scooby-Doo.
Hey, he's pretty wise too. He's got some good ideas. Oh
my God, Eric is full of like the best quotes, quips. Like it's
so good.
Insane. Yeah,
it's so awesome. Good with it. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I mean, I'm trying to like push my brains back into my head a little bit.
Yeah, my mind's blowing. How are we doing on time for your timeline? Are we?
I'm completely great. Doesn't matter to me.
Awesome. So, in your opinion, is it? Do we need to like get rid of this net that's around the Earth? Like, is it a good thing? It seems like it's a good thing and a bad thing, but like also like, I don't know, like should we just get rid of it? I feel like we should just get rid of it.
Yeah, I agree. We should get rid of it, because that net is actually preventing us from actually having full source consciousness coming down to us. It's keeping our vibration very limited. It's keeping the, have you ever met someone and you look at them, you're like, I swear to God, you're an alien. And you have this like really strong sense with them. I'm like, you feel like they're lying to you with their appearance as though something's not quite right. This net is actually in part allowing for these beings to hold on to the energetic facade. We do have a lot of beings of extraterrestrial, multidimensional nature walking around amongst us that do not appear as we are viewing them to be. People that are more able to see beyond the normal spectrum of light are able to see quite often either a hazy outline around them, or the aura being different, or on occasion seeing a full-blown reptilian or gray or jinn energy or whatever it is standing behind them. And when people are having momentary abilities to see beyond the normal spectrum of light, where they're moving beyond the vibration that this net is casting upon them, they will notice the eyes change from being normal pupils that are rounded to being slits, or seeing almost like the face change for a moment, or like a patch of skin changing, things of that nature. And so that is,
I've seen that.
yeah.
Have you seen the striping stuff on like video?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
No, I'm glad you brought that up, because for people who don't know what that is, that's actually something that really needs to be talked about as well, is how our technology is increasing as we've had an abundance of extraterrestrial multidimensional technology coming into the more mainstream aspect, which is catching not only the orbs, the spirits through spirit boxes and recordings, but also in the media, it's catching the celebrity eye slits, it's catching the black and white tiger stripes like you talked about a moment ago, on everything from Justin Bieber, Miley Cyrus, Beyonce, the president, you name it. And the shape shifting that's occurring within the microseconds that the films are catching as well. Very important to make reference to. So I'm glad you brought that up.
I mean, can I add on to that and say that it's totally possible that it's a artifact of camera and then just data being lost? Or is there an in between, or is there, like, does it have to be one way or the other? Because I would fall between the lines of like, it could be a little bit of artifacts happening with cameras. I mean, does anybody know how a camera works? I don't, but there's a lot of information, and then it's being processed by another thing that's being processed by another thing. There's bound to be something that happens. And with our technology now, with high def and HD and all that stuff, and when you still see these artifacts that have been happening since the 80s, since presidents have been on TV. And you're like, well, but I thought our stuff's way better than that now.
You're still catching it, but we've been catching this since the 80s. Like, is that just coincidence, or is this really starting to happen? It's like you had to have that many years pass and watch technology grow and still see this same thing happening throughout years and years and years.
Why is it always on the face, too?
Because it's the only way we see. We're clothes. You know?
But you bring up a good point. We do have to use deductive reasoning and look at things from the point of view of a scientist, like we all learned in middle school and high school. Okay, what is the most likely reason? Okay, does this make sense? Yes, it does. No, it doesn't. And then we have to form other conclusions based upon our findings. So yes, I agree. We have to take into consideration whether it could be computer error, technological error, camera error. But there reaches a certain point when you do not have technology in front of you, like you're at the farmer's market and you see someone's eyes change, or you look at someone, especially the testimonials of a lot of people who've gone through either satanic ritual abuse, abusive spouses, drug addict spouses, things of that nature. And they will notice that's like there's a personality switch that takes place with the spouse, and the eyes go black, or they go to being slits for a moment. We also have to take those into consideration as well, where there is not the trick of the light, the trick of technology in place here as well. So there are a lot of components that we have to take into consideration. Yes, I do believe that it is picking up different frequencies, and a lot of these beings are perhaps different species in place here, especially among the people that we see most notably upon television, be it our celebrities or politicians, whatever. But you have to look at this at a certain point. How much evidence do we need to realize that there is more going on than what we're initially perceiving?
Wow. Yeah. I mean, you should be on the news like every night, like just like everything. You're not saying anything that I'm like, oh yeah, what? I don't know. It's just like an overall feeling I have. That makes so much sense to me.
I hate to keep going back to this, but this net thing around the earth, who put it there? You know who put it there?
Beings from thousands of years ago. And we have a lot of artifacts upon ley line points where they're intersecting that are causing, like emitting a vibration going straight up that is keeping a lot of these nets in place. And as our ley lines are beginning to fluctuate and shift, as we're preparing to go through a pole shift, we're noticing that the energies are shifting big time. And this is causing disruptions within the energetic field, not only that the net is casting around us, but also within our consciousness, it's allowing it to fluctuate more. And so that's part of why we're seeing this shift in place. But as to which beings in particular, you could honestly probably narrow it down to a few: the Anunnaki in particular, the reptilians in particular, a lot of the ancient gods around ancient Egypt, Sumeria, Atlantis, ones of that nature, where we have these deities being depicted as very large neaters, where they're like 15 feet tall, part cat, part human, part crocodile, part human, part bird, part human. Those are the ones that were working with us a very long time ago, that our ancestors were informing us were coming here. And you have to look at our history to see where these came into place. And it's being shown time and time again throughout the architecture as to who it is that is controlling this planet. Predominantly, it is more reptilianly focused, because we did have a lot more benevolent beings in the beginning, but we are in essence being ruled by Draconis reptilians, hence our very strong patriarchal society, also very tendency towards white supremacists, because within the reptilian caste, they are very much so divided by color and abundance as well. Strength and might is what rules in their world. And I don't know why they're so obsessed with the white aspect. It's completely baffling to me, but it is something that I have noticed very strongly within those beings. They do rely very strongly upon their color can dictate their caste system, with the green reptilians and the brown reptilians, of course, being of a lower vibrational, lower intelligence, smaller frames, with the black ones being much closer to the white ones, because they're very strong, very powerful, very psychic, very capable. And the gray reptilians do appear to be much closer to the humanoid aspect, where they can hold on to the human form a lot longer and a lot easier than some of the more bulky football player, rugby player type reptilians as well.
Interesting. I mean, it kind of like, if we take it all the way back to like, like the Germans, right? The Nazis, and like the people that they supposedly came in contact with were like this kind of a white race, which is,
the barons.
Right. They had this technology, and then during like World War II, like interesting thing that I've heard recently was like, that's why Persia changed its name to Iran, because they were actually, I'm sorry, how did it go? I forgot what they said. It was something about Iran was, yes, this Persian Empire. Iran was like a friend of Adolf Hitler, the Nazis, and Iran is close to Aryan, and so they switched the name to show like this offering of like appreciation to like this race
Deity.
of people, this deity, these white beings of sorts. Yeah, so a lot of things changed, a lot of names changed after World War II, and like countries in that area, and it's specifically because of this whatever they were saying to these people in these countries, man. I mean, like, they obviously, something was happening, right? Their technology was just absolutely insane at the time.
Course.
It was only because of our industrial might that we were even able to just throw a million people at them, right? And that's the only thing that stopped them. But their technology, their information, the stuff that they knew was like, whoa. And they really had like a big, they paid attention to the esoteric aspect of life, which we in the United States really don't. It's kind of like, oh yeah, that's like church stuff, or it's magic. It doesn't exist, right? But the Germans they took like a really a serious look into this more spiritual aspect of things. I mean, everybody from like Aleister Crowley to like, I mean, we're not saying Nazis, right? But I mean, we're talking about like this European like culture that was really, really heavy into that.
Yeah.
Of course. And you bring up a lot of good points. One thing that you'll find within a lot of the MILABs and MKUltras is a lot of them do come from Nazi bloodlines, where their family members going back to their grandparents and great-grandparents were Nazis. And that is actually quite common, especially if you talk to them privately. A lot of them will talk to you about that, which is disheartening. But one thing I have found with this, as I've talked to the various beings about it, is it's not that you in the United States do not have political officials and your ruling elite as being connected towards the esoteric and divination, things of that nature. You'll find that they're just much more in the closet about it. They still practice all these things, from sex magic, blood magic, white magic, black magic, as well as all forms of divination, astrology, numerology, things of that nature. They're just very quiet about it, because if they talk about it more openly when they're trying to portray that they are Christians, then they're going against what they're claiming to their sheep to be. because they are manipulating them. They're placing them as saying, oh, we're the same as you. We do the same as you. Anyone could be in this position. When they're full lying to those people, they only allow for their bloodlines to move forward with positions of power and capability.
Yeah, that's why you see, like, it's like you have all these politicians that are like the leaders of the country, right? They're not like political heroes. They're representatives, by the way. Anybody's listening, you need to start treating them like representatives, because that's all they are. They're nothing important. But all these people, they're part of, the Skull and Bones, or
talk about like occult practices.
Yeah, like they're all part of these like well-known like occults, and it's like, okay, like, and we're supposed to just look past that, like it's not a big deal. Oh, it's just a big fraternity group.
No, they're protecting something.
They're
protecting some sort of power, whether it be knowledge or some physical.
It's like your political, like the people running your country are part of groups that used to sacrifice virgins, like on tables, like, and still do. Yeah, you're exactly right. I believe that wholeheartedly.
What was it?
They still do.
They do still do human sacrifice. They still practice sex magic. You'll find most of these politicians and people of notoriety will take all of the major holidays off that are pagan in nature, be it Ostara, the equinoxes, the solstices, Beltane, things of that nature, Litha, because those are very sacred holidays, depending upon the conjunction of the planetary alignments, which they do follow quite closely.
But they
now we're getting in this realm of like, all right, like the leaders of the world are reptilian, like the Queen of England is a reptilian. And that's where you like lose people, but like still I'm so fascinated by that idea.
And they just call it like President's Day, Easter, all these like national, like America has like 70 holidays, dude. Like, I swear, dude. Like, I don't understand how I work like a full 40-hour week every week and still have all these holidays. It's insane. I guess I should be kind of grateful, like, right? But at the same time, I was like, geez, we have so many holidays. Like our calendar, like I was looking through a calendar and they had National Donut Day. What the hell?
I love it. That's exciting.
I love it too. Yeah. Yeah. It's not like, it's just, it's a little more pure, right? Than like, oh, it's Christmas, right? There's like all the baggage that goes along with
so much
but like
baggage.
National Donut Day, that's
fun for everyone.
Let's go get coffee. I'm down
But
all days.
you have to take into consideration, like when you look at the extraterrestrials and multidimensionals that are doing the majority of the abducting with humanity, especially those that are doing things like the hybridization, they are following specific bloodlines in place with, of course, the negative bloodlines in particular, O negative bloodlines being the most commonly tracked and traced and interbred. And so they are very cautious about who they allow to have in a position of power, because they do want people that are typically more extraterrestrial in nature, because those people are able to see things from their place of awareness and their understanding. This, of course, being said very heavily with some of the more negative reptilians, some of the more negative grays, things of that nature. And so if you look at a lot of the presidents, celebrities, stuff like that, you'll find that most of them are of negative blood types, most of them are related to one another. Even when you start to take into consideration what they're doing, they are trying to keep themselves as interbred as possible and keep the normal people out of it, because they don't have the same tendency to have a high percentage of reptilian DNA. So when you are interviewing people and you're looking at who it is that is hybridizing them, you have to take into consideration, okay, what could this person know? What could they be exposed to based upon which groups are breeding them? Because when you have
they might not even know what they've been programmed to do, like subconsciously, right?
That's true, but they're able to find out when they start talking to their angels, their spirit guides, their higher self, tapping into their higher levels of DNA, which doesn't have the same mind control aspects in place that we see around a lot of people. So when I look at this aspect, when I want to really start getting a lot of my memories back, especially around my MyLab stuff, my MKUltra stuff, the things in relation to all the different beings that I've met, I asked my guides multiple times, asked my higher self to release all that information. And a lot of it does come back in dream time, but you'll also start to be able to see beyond the fabric of reality if you ask them to allow you to do so and to assist you in doing such. Now, you might actually regret it when you go to your kid's school and you're picking them up and you're like, oh God, okay, that parent's reptilian, didn't know. Okay, that one's a reptilian, didn't know. Okay, that one's a gray, didn't know. Okay, that one's something that I can't even put a name to because I don't recognize what the heck that one is. And so when you start having stuff like that, be careful what you wish for, because you might find out more than you want to know, and you might want to have a glass of wine afterwards, because sometimes it's a bit of a, no, I can't deal with this.
Yeah.
So
I'm gonna drop you off before the carpool lane. I mean, this might be like totally ripped off from MIB, like the first Men in Black movie, but I related so much when Will Smith's like, I'm talking about his like fifth grade teacher or something like that. Like, I always knew that guy was naked. You relate without saying too much. Like, let's just say that I'm 100% sure that one of my teachers in my childhood was definitely an alien.
Definitely an alien, dude.
Well, you've met quite a few of them in your lifetime. You're just not aware that you've met them. Every single person on this planet has interacted with extraterrestrials and multidimensionals. They could be working as a bank teller. They could be working as a politician. They could be the guy down the street delivering your papers. They are in different positions of society, some in more elevated status, some in more lower status, but a lot of them are acting as eyes and ears. So some are living here just like normal lives. So please don't see them all as nefarious, because that is not my intention. Some are actually very nice. And so you have to take that into consideration as well. Some are simply here, not necessarily in refugee status, but because they can better adjust to a life here. And it's easy to blend in, all things considered.
And like, as you're saying, they are probably maybe here for a systematic purpose to affect certain people at certain times in their lives to raise vibration. Like, who cares if they're an extraterrestrial? Like, this guy, I really needed somebody to be nice to me this day, at a certain point, or like, let me into traffic, if that's that stuff makes my day. And I'm like, I'm in a really shitty mood, and somebody just does something nice. Like, does that make sense? Like, maybe they're just here to just like we are, just to go through this life, and just the fact that they're an alien, I don't know, maybe they're here for a good reason. And to do certain things for other people at specific times in their life, whether they know it or not. I don't know that, I guess.
Yes, that's quite correct. A lot of the beings will come to you, especially before an important junction point, right before your awakening takes place on one capacity or another, or the next step of your awakening. They will come to you in a more physical capacity and be that stimulant for change. A lot of people that are out within the UFO community, they had one event where beings were fully in their face, and they're like, hey, you're going to remember this encounter. You're going to see a gray, wide awake in the woods, no deny it, and it's going to send you down this path where you're going to be helping to awaken other people going through what you're going through. And then we'll start having your memories come back. That is completely normal within this field as well.
So if ETs can arrange meetings, like, for a hybrid program or whatever, could they make just like arrange a meeting of people like in a cafe? You know?
Quite easily. They arrange a lot of synchronistic events through altering our technology and influencing us to go to one place or another, whether it's speaking at a certain UFO conference, or going to go talk to someone, or go to a bakery down the street. Like, I really feel the need, like, I've really got to go buy a donut. And lo and behold, the guy behind you is wearing like a UFO shirt. Like, cool shirt, man. Yeah, I'm into that too. And then voila, you've now met one of your stars, someone else you're being abducted with, or someone that's in your soul family, or someone who is going to be a support for you in this incarnation, like we talked about on the soul contract level at the very beginning of this show.
Because I always wondered, like, the first time we ever met Jocelyn,
it
was just such a random occurrence, and it was like we just met her, and then boom, everything we did just rocketed. Like,
everything landed in its perfect place, and it was like almost like we were on a mission. We're like, yeah, we're gonna do this, and everything felt predetermined.
And we had no idea that it was about to happen. Like, me and Ben went to this conference, and we were like, yeah, let's go see Richard Dolan, right?
Hey, yeah.
I want to high five David Childress so bad.
We just want to big giant blocks.
Love that guy.
Yeah, man. And so, we went to go have some fun, and we end up meeting this amazing woman. Her name is Jocelyn. Yeah, Jocelyn Buckner, and she's been on the show a couple times. And man, I swear, like, it's like you were talking about how like certain things attract certain things. Like, you can even ask Ben, for some reason, if like I walk in a room, somebody's going to come and talk to me for 30 to 45 minutes. It never fails. Always somebody comes and talks to me, and like, I'll just chit chat with you if you want to chit chat. That's just what happens. But everywhere we go, we have a conversation.
Good. I like that.
Everywhere. And Jocelyn was just one of these people who was like, "Hey, how's it going?" And we're like, "Oh yeah, we're not much." She's like, "Oh, here for the conference, right?" And we're like, "Yeah, we're here for the conference." And then just our entire like world just like blossomed like a flower, like everything. Like we just, like I said, we've been interested in this stuff since we were children.
Of course.
This one lady that we met just, dude,
leads us now to talking to you.
She's the reason we're talking to you, because
thank you, Jocelyn.
Thank you so much, Jocelyn. If you're listening, Jocelyn, which I know you do occasionally.
Also, Dave, thank you for,
also Dave,
of course.
And yeah, she put us in motion to meet all of these people, all the way up to Dave. And then he mentions your name, and I listen, like, and this is another thing too, because what he says is very clear, but I feel like maybe this is some sort of intervention, but I could not hear your last name to save my life. I couldn't. I wanted it so bad. I listened like 10 times and I just couldn't hear it. So finally I messaged Dave and I'm like, dude, what's her last name? I cannot hear it. Like, Moet. And I was like, duh, that's what you said. And then I looked you up and I heard on one of your, it was just so random because I heard on one of your shows and you were like, yeah, I'm terrible at email. If you want to get a hold of me, just text me. And I was like,
yeah,
oh, shit, here we go. You were like, hey, what's up? Yeah, I'd love to. I was like, awesome. Dude, that's perfect. It just fell into place,
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to this like area of our life, things have slid right into place easily.
Mm-hmm.
Everything I've ever done, it's been just like pulling teeth in my life. It seems like this has come so easy and natural. It's kind of freaky. It's really kind of freaky.
I understand that, but what you're doing is you're actually following the energetic pathways being laid out before you by your soul. You're in alignment with what you're supposed to be doing. When we're doing things that we're not meant to be doing, all the doors are shut for us. There are blocks or obstacles. We can't move forward no matter how hard we try. And yet when we're doing things that our soul agreed to do and that we're supposed to be doing, it's like the easiest path in the world. It's just you have to follow that energy. So when you encounter the synchronistic events, it's like, hey, I heard about the donuts and now I'm going to go to this donut shop and I meet this guy. Or, hey, let's go. I keep seeing Richard Dolan's name everywhere. So let's go to this conference. He's going to be speaking there. See how there's that, like your guides working so hard to give you those synchronicities in place that you take those steps. Following the energy like you're doing is going to make your life not only much easier, but it's going to bring you the abundance you're seeking, the following that you're seeking. It's going to actually provide you with the easiest way possible because you're allowing the universe to give you exactly what it is you need to be doing. And that's fantastic. Good job, guys. Most people never figure that one out.
You just figured it out for us.
I feel like you did. But because we literally just had that conversation.
Yeah.
We should hit this really hard. Yeah. We seem to be okay at this. Let's do this really hard. And like, boom, there you have it.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, it's pretty amazing. I honestly feel like you're almost being our guide and you're speaking through all of your experiences and all of the entities and the energies that you've experienced over time. And you're speaking through us to our audience. I mean, we said this earlier, but like our buddies that listen to our podcast are just like us. Like we're like super into aliens, but I feel like this might be at a really specific time where they're maybe on the fence of like, hey, so is there something to this or not? And I think the way that you're able to articulate it is really powerful.
Thanks. I'm just channeling. You're just speaking to my guides rather than talking to me.
You're doing a good job. Well, your guides are smart. You guys are smart. They must.
They are.
Hey, you guys. We're going to start leaving Baby Ruths out for them. Baby Ruth.
Yes. They'd really appreciate that. I leave offerings out for my guides all the time. Flowers, glasses of scotch, dinner table plate. That way they can join us for dinner, things of that nature. It does go a long way. A little bit of gratitude gets a lot more beings working with you.
That's so cool.
I've never thought about that. I feel like this communication, this contact is so one-sided. But like what you're proposing is like, why not just like put
it's not
pretty
right
out there? That's so easy. Like, why don't we just give back a little bit?
That makes you wonder why people used to leave gifts for
Offerings
the gods.
for the gods, dude.
And the Fae folk, people used to leave out bread and a bowl of milk for the Fae.
Yes.
Is it Iceland that they have the elf community, or is it Iceland?
Iceland and Greenland.
So awesome. Like, I want to go see those elf houses so bad, and I want to go eat a sandwich. I want to take a cheeseburger from America and place it in front.
Double bread cheese.
Can you film this, please? Like, when you go do the cheeseburger thing, film it, upload to YouTube for the rest of us.
With lots of lettuce, so we know it's at a high vibrational double bacon cheese. It's a double bacon cheese with a super high vibration. Dude, we should open like an energetic cheeseburger joint where it's like,
would you like to add vibrations to this? Or you mean lettuce? No, it's called
vibrational lettuce, dude.
You guys should partner with the Grays, because they can make a lot of veggie products taste just like meat, like you're having a steak or a burger, and yet still be high vibrational.
That sounds impossible.
The Impossible Burger. Oh my God, the owner of Burger King was an alien. Jesus Christ.
Actually, I've had it. It's delicious.
It's all coming together now.
I'll say it. It's good.
Is it good?
It's good.
I'll take your word.
You're a commie. How dare you, sir?
I don't know what that means.
Oh man. So I had another question for you.
Okay.
Obviously, right? So we're talking about extraterrestrial beings, interdimensional beings, light beings. Like, I guess this is like a two-part question. Can you tell me as best as you can, what all types of beings are there? And then I guess just to kind of like keep it simple, can you explain, like, who are the extraterrestrials and who are these interdimensionals? Because I feel like, I don't know, like when people say, hey, we're looking for aliens, I feel like a lot of them are talking about extraterrestrials. Like, maybe these guys are just flying around in space, right? Like, and then there's like
the tall whites.
Okay, so the tall whites are an extraterrestrial race. How about the Greys? Are they
multidimensional?
Multidimensional, okay.
Or extra dimensional, whatever you prefer.
Extra dimensional, dude. Okay, so so these tall whites are extraterrestrials. Okay, they have like some like better stuff than us, but haven't quite reached that level of like these gray, like,
of consciousness and technology. The one thing you're noticing about the tall whites in particular is they're from this universe, so they travel here in real time, whereas a lot of the multi-dimensional beings that we're looking at, their craft travels between the different dimensional planes, so they're more inclined to have things like vortex technology, orb technology, where an orb comes down from a UFO or from a different dimensional state, often blue, pink, orange, and will come down into your bedroom, collect you, and then take you back up to a ship, and then it will travel to a different dimensional plane. Also, when you find yourself going through things like a giant hole opening up in the ceiling, that is more likely to be a multi-dimensional craft, something that could be above your house for a minute and then abduct you, and then you and the craft be gone a minute later. When we're looking at the beings that are multi-dimensional, the ones that are closest to us are, of course, things like the Greys are very close to us, the reptilians are very close to us, the Pleiadians are fairly close to us, the lower dimensional ones that are in the fifth dimension, those are all just outside of our visual spectrum of light. So they're extra dimensional. I'm going to just cover the extra dimensionals for the next couple minutes. I think that's really important.
Yeah, definitely.
What we're looking at with that is that means their vibration is operating a little bit faster than our own. And so we're operating at a rate that's pretty consistent, but we're starting to fluctuate between the two. And that's why sometimes people will see like a being at the corner of their eye. They're from it. They'll go to the bathroom, and you'll hear about someone walking by, and they'll see a reptilian staying in the one bedroom when they walk by, and they'll go back to like, oh, it's gone. Or they will end up seeing a being like pop its head up and they'll disappear. Things like that, of course, are you seeing interdimensionally. It's not that they always physically manifest, though sometimes they do. Whereas when we're looking at beings like the Andromedans, the Arcturians, they're of quite high vibrational. They often do have a very blue energy being emitted from them. It's not that your skin color tone means anything, but your auric coloring can depict a lot, meaning that you'll often notice that a lot of the Arcturian and Andromedan beings will have a blue essence around them because of the vibration that they're emitting. It's closer in wavelength to that of the vibration of the color blue. So of course, that's much closer to the tone of purple. So the closest color of like towards the source consciousness is white gold. And so when we're looking at that, that's the reason why we see ascended masters, everything from Kuan Yin to Jesus to Mary to the Buddha to Krishna. Quite often they'll have the gold coloring essence from them because that is closer to source consciousness and light beings. Now, light beings can be depicted in any number of colors. It's within the rainbow as well as much more, which is in the clairvoyant and other perspectives. So what that ends up meaning is that a being can have any color skin, but the auric coloring, when you see the auric outline, the higher the vibration the being is, the closer towards the upper chakra colors you will notice, with the exception of gold, because it goes white and then gold. And as to why that is, I have no idea. All I know is that source consciousness is quite often that whitey gold tone. And so when we're looking at beings, whether it's the crystal beings, the flower beings, so there are beings that are part like mushroom and part flower, and bipedal, which I know sounds really ludicrous and out there, but I've seen them. And if I hadn't seen them, I wouldn't believe it myself. When we're looking at the various things like the nagas, which are like these beings that have like a snaky type bottom with like multiple snake heads coming off. A lot of the elemental kingdom is all very close in vibration to us. We're talking about the 4th, 5th type density. Some of the upper level Pleiadians that are closer towards light beings are higher in vibration, much more akin to the crystal vibration or the light being angelic vibration. And what we see with that is that these beings will emit colors that are closer to, they can have an initial color that's like a yellowy gold color, and then you'll see, depending upon their affinity and focus or individual personality, subcolors coming through in the auric body as well. So for instance, if you were to be dealing with an archangel like Archangel Michael, you'll notice indigo tones coming forward or cobalt tones. If you're dealing with one like Archangel Raphael, you'll notice colors that are more gold than green. If you're dealing with ones like Jophiel, you'll notice more of the pink undertones coming forward, so on and so forth. We could go off about angels for a very long time. They're a very diverse and interesting group. And when we're looking at that component, it does have to do with the vibrational frequency in place. Everything in this universe and beyond is vibration, which is what our scientists have been trying to talk about and trying to make us be more aware of. Even those that are looking at it from a spiritual perspective, they're looking at things in regards to the soul, the aura, and that's completely fine depending upon where in the world they are coming from. They will give it all different names. And that's the main problem that we're having at this time, is it doesn't matter if you're Christian or pagan or Hindu, or if you're Buddhist, we all have names for the different names for the exact same things. And we're just so stuck on these silly little terms that we're being petulant about it. And that's the problem. And that's where the scientific community is looking at us going like, you're all crazy. This is fact. And so that's why we're having this discord occur. But that's all starting to shift and change as we start to become a more global community with all this wonderful technology helping us to connect. But getting back to what you're talking about, the multidimensional component, the beings that are accessing you on a multidimensional platform are able to use a number of different things. If they're using a Merkaba or a light ship, such as the Pleiadians do when they're coming down to see us, that has a completely different vibrational frequency and feeling to it than that of a craft of a gray or the craft being used by my labs, because the vibration being emitted by a gray craft, it feels like it's spinning, it feels very fast, it feels like the air is alive and tingling. Whereas when you have the craft of a Pleiadian above you, a light ship, it feels very loving, very harmonious, very sunlight. It feels almost like the sense of serenity is coming over you. Whereas the craft that we're seeing with beings like the Coneheads and with the reptilians and with the Milabs, yes, there are Conehead beings, not like the movie.
That competition.
Their cones only go up like a foot, 2 foot like type area. It's not very high up. It has a slight, like it goes back, the back section of the head, rather than being directly straight up like we see depicted in the movies. They're not as pronounced. It's more of like a slight point, quite nice, very close in vibration to us. But getting back to the point, when you see beings like that in their craft, it has still a very mechanical vibration and feeling to it, which feels completely different than when you're on a craft of some of these higher vibrational beings. And so you have to take that into consideration when you're looking at the different races. Their technology, pardon me, quite often is actually related to their consciousness. So when you're looking at beings that are like the Greys, yes, you could probably pilot a Grey craft and pilot it quite easily. Same with the Mantis craft, if you had the capability. But crafts are very different than what people are expecting, because you can have a craft that is actually very, very large that can shrink down to being quite small. In one of my MyLab encounters, I had a young man that I was with who appeared to be quite young. I believe he's about 10 years old or so. And this young man had a craft the size of a basketball that when he ended up like throwing it forward a few feet, actually went up to being big enough to being a pod that the two of us could sit in, which was completely mind-blowing for me because I hadn't seen anything like that before. And I've noticed that with a lot of these crafts, they can appear to be quite small, but when you get in them, they're much bigger on the inside than what you would initially perceive. So they are bending time and space in a different way than what people are initially anticipating with our current very limited technologies.
Oh. Whoa. Yeah, I know, because I've never like had it like, I know I've never had it like broken down. Like, okay, what's an extraterrestrial? What's an interdimensional?
The way
what's a light being?
The way that you articulated, it's like you're not reading off of a script. You're not just
where am I hiding the script?
You're telling the truth.
So if
it's amazing.
You had said earlier, it's like you're kind of channeling, like we're kind of talking to the higher dimensionals that are giving you the information. Is it possible that we have maybe like me and Ben, or maybe channeling some lower dimensionals that are wanting to learn? Like, is that a thing? Because we're always channeling higher dimensionals, it seems like. Are people channeling maybe lower dimensionals, like, and like maybe trying to learn some stuff?
You can. Let me break this down for you quite easily. When we're looking at the different types of beings that someone can channel, absolutely everyone on this planet has the capability to connect in psychically to the different types of beings. It just depends upon what your vibration is currently emitting at that time as to what you'll be channeling with. So if you're able to have more control over the various chakras, you will be able to have connections with a broader spectrum of beings. You two would not be talking to the deceased, the lower astral people, jinns and things like that, because you'd always be getting mixed up bullshit information that made no sense. It'd always be contradicting itself because they'd be messing with your head and be like, oh, I'm dead, I'm bored, I'm gonna go mess with these guys' heads. I'm gonna tell them that I'm a Pleiadian and that I'm from here and that my name's Bob. And they would give you like 20% reality and then like 60% BS. Then they just kind of like have some other stuff in there as well. Yeah. And then you'd believe them, but after like the second or so time of talking, you'd be like, nothing you're saying makes sense. Nothing resonates. Nothing is actually working the way you said it was. And then you'd realize very quickly that they're lower dimensional entities just playing little tricksters. They're being silly, messing with you. That's all.
I can point to one conversation we had that sounds very familiar to that.
Can you?
Not between you and I, but I'm not gonna.
It's all good.
Anyway, we've had mostly positive conversations where it's like, okay, yeah, most of the stuff that is making sense, but we have. I have talked to at least one person that I'm like, I don't know if an entity is fucking with, like, messing with you, and then like now we're hearing it and like we're trying to discern
only one. It was a complete like energetic.
He sucked the energy out of my body.
Attachment on that person,
and it was like we were done, but like
10 minutes in,
it just kept going. Like it wouldn't. It was like, what the heck?
Oh no.
But I mean, all in all, like, still good dude.
Yeah.
Good episode, right? There was just something about that. It was like pulling teeth. It was exhausting. Like when we were done, like usually when we do this podcast, like after this, we're going to be like bouncing off the walls outside, looking at the sky.
I'm going to do karate when I go outside.
Yeah, remember that thing.
I love karate. Good choice.
Yeah. But this, we were like exhausted. Like I was ready to go home and just go to sleep.
Aw.
The energy vampire.
But yeah, what you're saying, like it's not even probably entirely this person's fault. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
It could be whatever he's experienced, he or she, I'm not gonna say, but experience was this entity kind of messing with you. And I've heard the term trickster a lot, and it's like, man, I think that's definitely a possibility. I had one experience. Talked to my brother who's kind of reading through the Bible again, and he's always been very religious, and I told him about this little experience, a little dream, and he was like, man, I think it might even be a trickster or a demonic thing. And I was like, oh, I totally believe in that. Absolutely. I'm very wide open to that. But yeah.
Well, They're very real and they are all over the place. A lot of people that are very hyper religious and have a fear of anything related to metaphysics, the occult, psychic abilities, are really turning inwards, meditation, yoga, things that are actually very healthy practices like that, do have these entities whispering in their ear, keeping them in that fear-based state where they think that only their one religious entity is the thing that could save them, and giving away their sovereignty, which is actually the problem. And that's the one commonality that I find with most people that are very heavily religious, is they have given away their ability to tap into source on their own. And they believe they have to do it through this one particular being, which is very unhealthy. It is feeding that being your energy system, and that's not good for your aura. It ages you horribly, for one. It makes it so you no longer feel in control. It screws up your manifestation, and it makes it so you actually have a very hard time bringing forward anything very quickly or easily.
Yeah. I definitely, I definitely felt that, like growing up, in like we're like super like, it's like Mexican Catholic. Like it's as Catholic as you get, like other than being Irish, right? Like that's like hardcore. It's Catholic. You're Irish. Yeah. Irish Catholic, Mexican Catholic. I mean, it's pretty intense.
And I'm Baptist.
And you're what do you like, Polish or something?
I like Polish food. I like sauce. I like a good sausage.
And even like as a kid, like I would listen to these stories, and like I would be just completely like, fascinated by the idea, but the practice itself was so, I always just felt so empty. It never did anything for me, and like I always felt guilty about it, because you're supposed to feel guilty when you're Catholic, right? You're supposed to feel guilty and then go repent and confess your sins to this guy in this room. And usually it doesn't turn out to be very good.
He's like, yes. And,
and it's like, I never like, I don't know, like if I'm supposed to be connected to this thing, whatever it is, I'm more connected to it outside of this building than I ever will be inside of this building. And it was just like, even now I have kind of a tough time, because, man, when I look at my grandparents and I see that, that faith, like that just pure, unwavering faith, it's such a beautiful, like, kind of thing. And I'm like, I wish I had that kind of faith in something. But maybe it's just that I haven't found it yet. Doing the podcast, the UFO stuff, I see this connection, and it's always like a tough conversation, with my parents or, my grandparents, because it's one thing where I would like to speak up and say, hey, I love what you're saying, and I think maybe we're onto something a little bit more. Like, can we take this further?
Same coin.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, it's like, I don't feel like it's my place to disrupt that purity, like that faith that they have. And they're completely happy. And for me to just come in and be like, hey, I heard this new thing, what do you think about it? Like, it doesn't seem like it's my place. So, I have that respect with my grandparents and stuff, where we don't really get into too much stuff. I will tell some of these angel stories because my grandmother loves it. It's the biggest smile on her face. And then I'll think of something. I'll be, oh, well, high vibrational frequencies, like, that like maybe angels are like just this other being, like, maybe they belong to God. Maybe this is all correct, but how would it make you think that it's not just this spiritual thing that happens? It could be like a physical thing that, is, I don't know, maybe it's not physical. I don't know. I don't know. I find it to be very beautiful. And I feel like, even though I have some cool information, like, it's not my place to disrupt that,
And that's you following the energy. Once again, your guides and the beings you work with are telling you, don't share that with them. It's not what they need to know at this time. Although you're both here in a teaching capacity in this lifetime, they are not the target demographic for you to be reaching. And so you're trusting that intuitive knowledge, indicating that you shouldn't be talking about this. That way you maintain having that harmonious relationship, which is one thing that was very difficult for me to learn, especially in my early 20s, was that when I was dealing with people that were of a more religious orientation and they would encounter me, in particular, my grandmother-in-law, when she found out that I would do things like read palms and read tea leaves, let alone the angelic stuff, the alien stuff and everything else, she hid her hands from me for the rest of her life. And she always kind of avoided me after that. So sometimes it's best when your intuitive knowing says, step back, don't do this, to just abide by that inner knowing.
Yeah. Which definitely helps in like your day-to-day life of like, been like, we have this conversation at least once a month.
Read the room.
Like one, read the room, and two, like, why don't these people care? You know, it like drives you nuts that like it's just not a thing, right? You know, it's like, I've got bills, I've got kids, I've got shit to do. I don't have time to worry about this alien energetic crystal shit. And it's like, well,
like I told my dentist today about stuff.
Yeah. Some people just don't care. But then sometimes like you get in a conversation where somebody who you would just assume wouldn't care is just super into it. And it's like, it's such a cool thing. You're like, whoa, I can talk to, my local grocer, about, ETs or aliens or extra dimensional, like whatever, and it's,
same thing.
It's cool. It's cool. And I guess, now that you say that, you're following that energetic path.
Path of least resistance, man.
Water, dude.
Yeah, dude, I feel it.
Well, it's true. The more you follow that path, the easier life will be. I know a lot of people within ufology in particular tend to struggle in every direction they go. And they're like, I just keep having all these trolls coming after me. And I keep having, like, I'm afraid to tell my family, and I could not let anyone I work with know, or stuff like that. Yet I'm open with the people that I did pack with when I was on pack for my kids' school. They knew what I was doing. The people that I go to karate with know what I'm doing. Like, I don't make it a secret in my life that I talk to extraterrestrials, multidimensionals, angelic beings, so on and so forth, and work as a psychic. But it's also in my vibration that it puts out a more calming energy. From that standpoint, I'm very comfortable with who I am. And so my vibration, as it encounters other people's auras, they tend to react to it in a more harmonious and positive way, because I can come at it from a place not of ego, not of fear, but just of comfort and acceptance. So your vibration does really dictate how other people respond to what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's almost like if you've learned how to brew your own beer, you just want to tell everybody, like, it's so easy, trust me, just buy and you're like trying to force that on everybody. Like, it's almost, I mean, I'm not trying to dumb it down, but like in a way that I can understand, like when you're super into something at first, you want to tell everybody, but once you're comfortable with it and it's just something that you do and you experience every day, it's like, oh, you're curious about it? Well, okay, well, you want to ask? All right, well, I'll tell you about it. And then that usually gets a better reaction. Like,
yeah,
it does.
Yeah, it definitely does, man.
Like, yeah, okay, well, you're super curious. Okay, I'll tell you what I know. Cool. People are like, very interesting. Okay, awesome.
I agree. I think you're definitely onto something like that. Go ahead, Joe.
Oh yeah, no, I was just kind of agreeing with Ben, just like you were. And dude, I mean, I'm absolutely loving this because it's a whole new.
I think we're vibrating on like a.
I was to say, like, it's weird because like when we met Vivian, right, we were like right there talking to her, but like over the internet, like I'm getting this same like like like
for sure,
talk forever, easy, like easy going, like I don't know, it's very like it's just super cool. Like I think the one thing that I have learned as of tonight the most is like kind of trust your intuition, like follow that that feeling, good feelings and bad feelings are there for a reason. Like maybe you should pay attention to them, and the feeling Oh, hey, yeah, that was one thing. So, you were talking. So when we were talking about like maybe like if you encounter one and like maybe you're uneasy and you're like, I feel like something's in the room, and like they're like, all right, never mind. It's just not worth the time to be here. Okay, so I when I walk up the stairs of my house and then I turn to go to my room, there's a hallway, and sometimes it's dark because like podcast nights or whatever, like I will be I'll come in late or whatever, and like I'll pass my bathroom door or something, and I'll just get this chill up my spine. Like I gotta walk faster. Like, and like I'll even like kind of like verbally, literally say like, nope, not today. Like I would just like I get this feeling like I gotta get the hell out of there. Like I don't really like it's not necessarily like a negative feeling, but it's like, dude, like I feel something. I feel it. It's just a weird feeling. Like everybody has this occasionally in their lifetime where they walk around and they have this feeling. You think like maybe like tonight when I go home, because I know I'll get that feeling, like, should I just maybe stop and like pause by that door and like take a deep breath and be like, hey, everything cool. Don't you fucking touch me, but everything is cool. Like, I'm okay. Right. Like kind of like maybe just start trying to kind of ease that tension,
Yes, undoubtedly. If you want to have physical contact with a lot of these beings, you have to show them when they're appearing on an energetic level within your space, because you'll feel them quite often before you see them, that you're comfortable and not going to lose it when you see them. Because if they know you're going to panic and it's going to send you back like 2 years worth of progress, you're now in fear and you're going to be jumpy at everything. They're like, well, I'm not going to bother seeing him right now, even though he's saying he wants contact. It's obviously not. But if you stop and you're like, before you get in the house, you just take a deep breath, you calm yourself. And then when you walk by the bathroom tonight and you feel something, you just stop, you look at and go, hey, I can feel you. Whether it's out loud or in your head, doesn't matter. And just take that moment to pause. They'll recognize the progress that you're making, because this is a more benevolent being. If you're feeling it and it's not following you and it's not jumping out and giving that like that sense of anxiety and fear. So to me, that's a being that's not necessarily making you afraid, but it feels different. So you're not sure how to react.
Yeah. It's definitely a different feeling. Like, I don't know. It's not like when you walk by like a dark door in a haunted house. You're like, no, something's gonna jump out and scare me, right? It's more of like I gotta walk faster here, like, like it's just a really like, I don't know, it's kind of an uncomfortable feeling.
Of course.
And I think maybe would, as a human being, when something is uncomfortable, you interpret it as bad. You're like, I'm feeling uncomfortable. That means it can't be good, right? But uncomfortableness doesn't necessarily mean something bad. Great things in life come out of being uncomfortable. Hard work. Really, that's all I've ever done in my whole life. Hard work, so that's all I know. But maybe we'll move on to the ET aspect and just like, yeah, you got to put in the hard work in order to get the benefits, right?
To an extent, yes. And a lot of the beings that you encounter, especially because you're both becoming more sensitive on an empathic level, where you walk into a room and you can walk and be like, okay, I'm walking to like my high school reunion type thing, or even a room full of people at a UFO conference. You're like, okay, I don't trust that person, but I like that guy's energy, and that lady feels nice. And I feel like this person over here lies. And I feel like this person over here is this or fraud or whatever. You're going to start to pick up on the vibratory differences being emitted by the different people. And even the same thing can be said with the various beings that you're encountering. You're picking up on the vibrational frequency of this being that feels so different than anything you've encountered before. And with that in mind, although you can't see the being, you're starting to recognize that it's there, which in the past you may not even have been able to do that, which is incredible. Good for you. And because of that, just when you go home, you write in your little journal or your diary, whatever, hey, felt a being outside the bathroom, kind of felt like this, created these emotions in me. It felt warm, cold, tingly, not tingly, safe, not safe, whatever. Write it down, because the more you write that stuff down, the better in the future you'll be at analyzing the vibrations that you receive. Because you might go into like a dreamlike state that night or in the next couple of weeks where you encounter a being that feels like that vibration that's outside your bathroom. in which case you might get to see the being in either a facade form where it's projecting the image of a loved one to you that feels like that, or it may be coming to you in its true appearance, in which case in the future after that situation, when you encounter that same energy, like, oh, it's all right, it's just the energy of the grays, or oh, it's all right, it's just an energy of this, in which case you start to develop a relationship with them and a better level of connection, which then opens the door up for more beings having interest in working with you. So it's super exciting.
That is pretty exciting, dude.
Cool. It's like a signature. Like you're like, oh, I know this type of energy. Like, I see. But yeah, the facing that fear is
difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. Oh man. That makes me think of like, you know, because I always thought like, you know, like the lady who was like, yeah, you got the mantis dude following you, and like your earth whatever thingy is you're an elf.
Yeah.
You were
she said I was an elf, right? Yeah.
And then she was looking at me and she was like, oh, you're a lion and you're also a dwarf.
I was like, Legolas, hell yeah.
Like, she's like, you guys compliment each other because
you balance each other.
The best duo in Lord of the Rings.
We were, dude. Yeah. She was like, yeah, your dwarf guy makes all the weapons for the elves that are like really good friends and blah blah blah. Yeah. She was like, since you're a lion, you're pretty confident, you know your direction, you're gonna be just stubborn and you know what you're doing. That's why you're friends with this guy, and he's got like all these things behind him, and like this the mantid, and like he's like your guide and stuff like that, and like I always thought like, oh man, well like if I'm like this if I'm like this dwarf and like a independent lion, like maybe none of them are gonna want to hang out with me because like I'm just like I hate the cold. You know, I don't know. Am I too independent to where they're not gonna want to hang out with me? Do I have like, too bad of a lion vibe going on, or what? I mean, like what's happening? But
you're good to go though. I mean, if you look at yourself and your vibrations, you guys, yeah, you do complement each other very beautifully, which is great. But you also have to think about the fact that if you look at who you are and what your energy is doing, you are someone who has a strong earth energy. You're grounded, practical, reliable. You're very good at figuring things out. You're a problem solver by nature. That's a great thing to have. And of course, when you look at the Lyran component, it also means that you will have a natural affinity towards the esoteric, the metaphysic. You're going to be more drawn towards the energies of the earth, feeling more connected towards animals and nature. And that's great because it means you can tap into those natural ley lines, those natural frequencies all around you. That's a beautiful thing. Yeah, you're looking at the differences between you and like your bestie, and you're like, hey, cool. Okay, I get that he's an elf and I get that he's a mantis, but I mean, that also makes sense because the physical characteristics that you have embodied in this lifetime represent a lot of your previous incarnations. And so that's why you'll actually notice that a lot of people that have a high percentage of reptilian DNA who've been reptilian multiple lifetimes will end up having like a stronger, more muscular type frame. They'll have the very heavy brow in place, the very piercing eyes. They'll have like a very strong energetic field towards them, more of an affinity towards logic, order, reason, organization, military, things of that nature, commerce. Whereas people that are more affinity towards things like Pleiadians will be more empathic, technologically based, slightly lonerish on this planet. They'll be very sensitive towards the animals and the natural affinity towards psychic abilities, but they can't handle large groups for long periods of time. They have to have these periods of refreshing, whereas you're in one sense better equipped at that because you're always grounding your energy in and reading the energies around you. It's a very stable and strong vibration. And you're also less likely to be messed with because you have such a strong awareness of your energy and vibration. That's great. You're not as back and forth as Ben because of the way your energy is. It's much more grounded. So there are a lot of good things to every type of vibration. You just have to better understand the commonalities within your vibration. So as you encounter other people who are either dwarf or Lyran, you're going to find you have a lot of commonalities, not just physically with those people, but you're also going to find you have a lot of commonalities on a personality level and an interest level.
You know, it's pretty interesting because I work for a landscape company and I'm a plant guy. Like,
nice.
Absolutely love it, man. Like, we were talking about passions and stuff, and like things that we like to do and things we have to do. And I have to landscape, but I love plants. I don't landscape because I love it. I landscape because I get to hang out with plants and I get to be outside and I get to be in nature and I get to dig in some dirt and I get to like just have fun, you know, like when I get to do that, I'm having a lot of fun. I love it. I love it. I love being out in nature. Like if I got lost in the woods, I wouldn't worry for at least 2 days. You know, after like day 2, I'd be like, oh shit, maybe I'm lost. Like, do I have a flare? But like for like the first day, I would kind of be like, cool. I always have this, like when I'm talking to my wife, if I'm like just super stressed out, I always have this feeling of like, I want to go to the desert where nobody is there and just sit there for like 2 days. I just want to sit there. I have like this, I don't know. I love the woods and stuff, but I have this fascination with the desert, man. The desert, for some reason, the desert just blows my mind. I love it. It's such a barren, lifeless place, but damn, there's some beautiful magic about the desert that is just something in my soul, you know? Like, I love it. I love it.
Have you ever been out to Sedona?
Not Sedona, but 2 years ago, I was in the Laughlin and Grand Canyon area in Nevada. I've only gotten to go twice. It's very beautiful. I love that Valley of Fire in that area. Is so gorgeous.
So gorgeous, man. That dude, like in the United States, it's weird because people are like, Arizona. What do you want to go to Arizona for? And it's gorgeous in Arizona. Like I feel
energy.
Like yeah, people who have like either never been there or went to Phoenix are the only people who are ever like, yeah, Arizona sucks. It doesn't, man. Like it's really awesome. Yeah. So like, you know, west, like Southwest is like, that's my bag, you know? It's like east is a little too wet and swampy. And then north, it's just, damn, it's cold. That Southwest is just perfect for me. Just lots of cool mountains and caves and nothing, and I love it. Hell yeah. It's awesome.
I don't know. I mean, you guys, I believe you're in Texas, are you not?
Yeah.
You guys were colder the other day than I am, and I'm like really far north, which was kind of crazy. What's with that?
We had like 5 inches of snow.
That's awesome.
I've never seen that. I've been alive for 30 plus years now, 33 years, and I have never seen snow like that. In my humble little town, Taylor, Texas, you know, nice. It was really cool. I mean,
so awesome.
Yeah.
It's a great start to 2021, man.
It was cool.
I got to build a snowman.
And dude, we built like actual snowmen. Like, and they were legit snowmen. Like they were like 4 or 5 footers. Like they were good snowmen. And
snowman. It's called pronounced snowman.
Is it snowman or snowman? Snowman.
Yeah. I think it's snowman.
But yeah, I mean, it was so cool. And like, you know, what was really awesome about that day is that apparently in America, the world was falling apart and we didn't give a shit. We were playing in the snow. And that one day was just so beautiful because there was no politics. There was no COVID. There was no BS. Like everybody that I knew didn't even get on like the internet that day. I didn't check my phone for like 2 days in a row.
Yep.
And like, it was awesome because nobody cared about anything because this white stuff came out of the sky that we'd never seen before. It was great. We got a lot of sleet. Like we had this great sleet storm of like 2007 and it lasted for like 3 hours and like we shut everything down for the week. We were wow. We're done. But then the snow happened and it was really cool. It was really cool.
Hell yeah.
You know, like I have a 9-month-old and it was just perfect. It was like we got to hang out with my baby girl in the snow. Like we just had such a fun time. It was great, man. We had such a good time. So that was cool. I hope it doesn't come back till next year. Honestly, I'll be honest with you. But that one day was really awesome. Really,
That's
really
adorable. Congrats on the baby.
Thank you.
So exciting.
Thank you. Yeah, she's super cool. I like her.
Nice. I hope so.
She can hang out, you know.
So cool.
Yeah, man. But yeah, it's been great, man.
Yeah,
it's been great.
Hell yeah. I feel like we've held you for too long, and I feel like I had amazing. We're at like such a pinnacle, you know.
I know.
Shit, my brain's going crazy. Like it's kind of just. so much information. I just talked to my wife while I was taking Nibbler out, my dog, and I'm like, babe, I can't even talk right now. Like, there's so much going on.
It's time to process the information.
Samantha Mowat, thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight.
Thanks, guys. It was my pleasure.
Yeah. Oh man, and I hope you come back again. We'll definitely invite you back, and if you want to come back whenever you want to, if you're bored and you're like, hey, I want a podcast, let us know.
Oh yeah,
you can come on and we can chat some more. But this has been absolutely awesome. I'm so happy that we finally got to meet.
Me too. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Ben. Congrats on the baby. And I love the Futurama reference for Nibbler. That's awesome.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So do you have tell everybody about your website, and just, if they want to, I don't know, get a hold of you or need some help, how can you help them out?
Sure. So my website is www.samanthamowat.ca, Canadian, of course, so .ca. I'm also available on YouTube for Samantha Mowat, which is great. I help out mostly contactees, starseeds, people who are going through the awakening process, people looking for psychic readings. That's always something that I've been doing for a very long time now, helping people understand not only their soul origin, what's coming up in the next year, what their finances are looking like, relationships, things their guides want them to know, helping them better understand the beings they work with, as well as do psychic and intuitive teaching. Very easy, very fun. But for the most part, if you're really wanting to move forward with this, like we had talked about earlier, discernment is your greatest aspect. Anyone you feel more connected with, of course, contact them, because it's your soul trying to tell you to reach out. Whether that's me, someone else, doesn't matter. Follow your intuition. It's the most important thing you could do.
So
beautiful.
Great.
Beautiful.
So great. We're going to end on that note, man. I can't top it.
Yay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you so much, Samantha. This was so awesome. You've answered so many of our questions, and
yay.
Man, yeah, I feel healed. I don't know.
I feel good too, man.
You guys are funny. You're so entertaining. Oh my goodness. I could see why your guests are watching you, because that was just the easiest couple hours. And the banter between the two of you is great. Seriously, keep it up.
That's so good, man. I mean, that's kind of like the vibe that, that's the one thing about our show is like, hey, I'm not here to tell you how to do something. I'm not here to, show you, like, I don't know the answers, man. I'm learning. You're learning. If you want to learn, come along.
I'm learning.
You're learning too. Hey, man, we're all human. Yeah. Well, some of them.
Well,
I don't know. I mean, hey.
That's fair.
Who knows?
All right. Percentage, right? We don't know.
All right. Oh, man, we're going to start all over again. So we're going to end this now. But yeah, thank you so much. We had a great time, and I hope you have an awesome night.
Me too. Thanks, guys. Take care. It's lovely meeting you.
Bye.
Bye. How do I do this? Oh,
I got you.
Yay, got it. Bye.
Bye.